This conference will now be recorded.
My laptop crashed, so I'm using an old Chromebook. So we'll see. We'll see how this
We
goes.
know the feeling, Renee. We know the feeling.
It's getting to be any device with a camera works.
Okay, I think, let's see. It is 6 o'clock, so I'll make a motion to call the meeting to order. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Roll call.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, let's see here. Trustee Stetser,
Aye.
Trustee Lampier, are you on?
We want to wait a couple minutes for her?
She was there. Where'd she go? Oh, there she is.
was muted. Yeah.
Okay. Trustee Galusha,
Trustee Galusha, aye.
Trustee Lampier. Lily, you're muted. Trustee Keating,
Keating, aye.
Trustee Lampier. Still no sound from you, Lily.
Hello, Denise.
She hasn't got her mic down in front of her face.
Lily, maybe your mic is up high. It might need to be brought down on your ear. Do you have a mic on your ears? Nope. Nope.
Can always call in on a telephone as well.
You might need to call in, Lily. And we're waiting for Scott Harder.
Well, while we're waiting, let's does anyone have any conflicts of interest they would like to disclose? I do not.
I have nothing to report.
Trustee Stetser. Oh, Trustee Stetser does not.
Trustee Keating
Dan?
does.
Thank you.
And we're still waiting on Lily. I see
While
Scott
we're
Harder.
waiting, is he on? Oh, there we go. Okay, great. He just needs to unmute.
And share screen. Scott, can you hear us?
Hi, Scott.
Hello?
While we're waiting, I didn't see Scott on the agenda. What's Scott here to chat with us about?
He's going to talk about drainage at St. Louis, and he has a conflict. He was later on in the agenda, Dan, but I moved him ahead because he has a conflict later this evening.
Sounds good.
Can you hear me now?
He hasn't shared his camera.
Yes,
Who am I
I
hearing?
can hear you now.
Lily.
Lily?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we hear you. Okay, Scott, can you hear us?
I can hear you, but I guess maybe my video's not working? Or is my video working okay or not?
No, we don't see you.
We can't see you.
Oh, well, sorry about that, but I'm here.
Okay, all right, well, go ahead.
Okay.
Did we need Lily to declare any conflicts of interest?
Lily, I assume you're.
Here, no conflict of interest.
Okay.
Okay, Scott, We moved you ahead, so we were hoping that you would give us a little summary about what you found out with our investigations of the storm sewer system on South Main Street and some of the drainage issues regarding the sidewalk and St. Louis Church.
Okay, I provided some information to Dorothea this afternoon because she said she could post it on the screen. Perhaps I did a summary, and then we did a map of the area of interest.
Okay. Which presentation would you like me to show first, Scott?
Let's see. Well, the first drainage investigation at Main Street that you showed, that's the text of what we came up with. And
Right.
then I believe it's Site 4 is the drawing that's related to that.
Okay, hold on. All right, so you want me to show the site first?
Sure, if you want to show the site first, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay.
Scott, I'm very sorry to interrupt, but I want you to know that we've invited Sally Schrecker. She's here, so she can hear everything that is going on.
I see her in the video audience.
Okay.
Oops, I'm sorry. I told you the wrong one, Dorothea. That's Rand Place. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Could you
Hold
put up the site 5 then, please?
Yep. Sorry, it's taking me a moment. Coming out. There
Okay.
we go.
There we go.
Okay, it's up on
Okay,
screen,
that looks
Scott.
like it. Okay, so we did a map of the area that we looked at. This is a portion of it. I don't know if I can see about half of what we looked at. I don't
Maybe
know
you
if we
can
looked-
maximize it, Dorothea, so it fills the screen.
Anyway, this area was reported to us as having drainage problems in terms of drainage accumulating along the sidewalk and the driveway aprons that connect to South Main Street. We met Sally out there. We got some information from her, and we also took some GPS elevations of the area to confirm pretty much what we were seeing after a recent rainstorm, which confirms what I'm saying in terms of it being a low area that just holds water. And what our elevation check showed us was that until the water ponds to a depth of 2 to 4 inches or so, it really doesn't reach a level at which it can reach the catch basins that are out in the street. And Sally informed us of the condition that's been lingering here for some time. She also indicated that it's even more of a nuisance in the wintertime when icing is a factor to contend with. So I think our investigation has verified the condition. I met out there with Zach as well. Zach is certainly welcome to offer any input to this discussion too. We considered some possible solutions. One possible solution would be to lower the storm sewer system in the street. But we're not sure that DOT is interested in doing that, nor are we certain if it's even on their agenda. But that is one possible solution if it were to somehow magically happen. Another solution would be to raise the elevation of everything along here, raise the elevation of the sidewalk and the driveway aprons and everything, and match in to the other areas so that we have positive slope out to the street. That is a possible solution. I believe that would be quite expensive to do and quite extensive as well in terms of a lot of excavation and rebuilding in this area of the village. And the other item that I mentioned, based on my past experience, under unique conditions similar to this, would be some sort of a storm water pumping station periodically to pick up the water and simply pump it into the catch basins where it cannot get gravity. So
Hey,
that's
Scott, mind if I ask a quick question? We've also seen challenges on Shane Place right in front of the grain elevator with backup there from stormwater. Would that same kind of pump system work there as well?
I suppose that system can work just about anywhere. It's typically a last resort because it's you know, it's an electrical mechanical system that, you know, periodically requires maintenance and such. And if we can get things to work by gravity, that's always the most preferable way of doing things. But when I look at this situation, assuming that the DOT is not really going to do much of anything, which is probably a safe bet, and when I estimate in my mind anyway the cost of reworking this area of the east side, if you will, of South Main Street, certainly a stormwater pump system, a few vaults with a few pumps would be much more cost effective.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor Corby, this is Trustee Stetzer. When is South Main Street or Main Street due for resurfacing?
I think it's I think it's 2022, I believe.
So it's after Route 31?
I believe so, but I'd have to, that's my memory, Renee, but don't, I'm not positive.
There's an issue on, I know the Drakes have talked to DOT for decades, and so there's an issue right in front of their house as well on Route 31. So these storm drains are problematic in a couple of places, and it makes sense to try to couple it with when they're repairing or resurfacing the roads, because they're going to tear those up. I actually don't know how far down they're going to be going for 96 and 31.
All right, I've got some questions, Scott. So how far down on your, the aerial photograph we're looking at, which line is the storm sewer? Which color?
Yes. We didn't identify the storm sewer, which is out in the street. We identified the catch basins, which are highlighted in white and lettered CB. We didn't identify the storm sewer in the street. We couldn't.
So the blue line is the sanitary sewer?
The sanitary?
Is that what that is? Yeah. You have a blue line that I see coming down Stonegate. It looks like it's the sanitary sewer.
Hang on a second. If it's labeled sanitary, that should be the water main. The cyan colored line is the water main. We've got between the sidewalk and the catch basins, we have a water main and we have a gas main, and I think we might even have we've got electric overhead, and I think perhaps underground 4 streetlights. So in addition to the fact that we don't have the elevation that we need to get to the catch basins by way of gravity, we have these obstacles vertically in the way that we would conflict with.
So the problem that I see that we have is that we have water that's from the surface paved areas on the St. Louis campus, some of it's sloped towards the sidewalk and it ponds there because it can't get up to the street, correct?
Correct.
So if we elevate the sidewalk, we're going to create a dam and we're just going to move that ponding to the east, correct?
Right, so we'd have to elevate more than just the sidewalk. We'd have to elevate and slope further to the east until we could match in at a higher level so as to create a positive slope towards the edge of pavement of the street. In other words, you have to do more than just raise the sidewalk.
Right, that's what I'm saying. So the sidewalk alone, and do we know, is it feasible to tie in? The other issue is there's a jurisdiction issue regarding the storm sewer. We believe these storm sewers were installed prior to 1971, which under the current DOT interpretation means that they're village infrastructure. Is that correct?
I think based on our meeting with DOT, they indicated it was our responsibility to take care of them and rebuild them and maintain them, if I remember correctly. And Zach was at that meeting too, so perhaps he can.
So my understanding from prior DOT discussions that if we own the stormwater system, then it's also our discretion if we allow private property owners to tie into it. Is that correct?
I think that's ultimately a DOT determination, but I think it has some logic to it. When I did a project like this, I can't speak for the DOT, but it makes sense to me.
No. Well, I was also going to ask Jeff if Jeff would weigh in on this issue. Jeff, are you there?
I am here. I have never looked into that. Once you have if that's a municipal, not district, but a municipal system paid for by municipal tax dollars or whatever other revenue the municipality has, and I haven't looked at this. I'm guessing that it's like anything else. There would be a tie-in fee and something like that.
Well, in 2003, when we were repaving the area in front of the Nance building, the historic Hargis Briggs Elliott building, we submitted a request to DOT to enter the catch basin, the driveway there north of the church and between the church and the historic home. And it was denied because the state did not permit any penetrations in brick and mortar catch basins, and that's what that is out there. And so that was the answer we got in 2003. DOT engineering staff was they would not have penetration of a brick and mortar catch basin. So I don't know whose it is, but that's what they said. And that's why we didn't enter it in 2003.
All right. Well, the other issue, I think, before we go down the legal issue of who has jurisdiction, and I mean, obviously, to me, it seems the easiest solution would be to tie into the catch basins and take care of the drainage. The question, though, that we asked Scott to take a look at, and what I was hoping to get an answer tonight is what's the capacity of the storm sewer on South Main Street? And does it have the capacity to handle the additional drainage from some of the surface asphalt areas that were installed by St. Louis in 2003?
I don't know the answer to that question. That would involve interfacing with the DOT and finding out what they may have used for a design standard and going back in time to take a look at things and what the drainage flows were back at that time. We didn't get into that level of detail. Yeah, we simply took a look at this from a more general perspective, like what we're speaking about now. So I don't know what the drainage was in 2003, and I don't know what the basis was for the design of the system that's out there right now in terms of flows. But I guess my gut feeling tells me that the amount of drainage that's arriving there now would be approximately the same as the amount of drainage arriving there via some type of a pump station. It would just be arriving at a different time interval, and with less storage. The water does get out. The water does get out to the street. It
I
just
didn't
has
follow
to
you
reach
on that, Scott. So
the water does get out to the street. It just has to reach a 2 to 4 inch level in order to get out there, which creates the ponding situation and the nuisance condition. But the water does get out there eventually.
Right, so-
Otherwise, it would be extremely high.
The water also comes off the street because it get to the catch basin.
Yes.
So you looked at it, Scott. In your professional opinion, what's the easiest solution to remedy the ponding that's currently occurring there?
I think the easiest and most cost effective would be to explore the pumping alternative and follow up with the DOT regarding their acceptance of such a system, which I did a similar system in the village of Fairport some years ago that was accepted by the DOT. We provided justification, as I think I see here, in terms of a unique situation, and the alternatives. There really don't seem to be any other alternatives.
So exploring that a little further, Scott, where would the pump station be located? And would it address the issues at the two driveways where the real problems occur presently?
I think you might want to put the pump station on private property, not in the right of way. I think the DOT might object to it being in the right of way, and the right of way seems awfully crowded to begin with. I'm not sure if you could fit it in there, but assuming you could put it somewhere on the private lands, you could create a linear trench drain system along the edge of the sidewalk, and that could flow into the vault, which could pump into the catch basin. You might want to do more than one vault. I think it would require a little more investigation to determine just exactly where the best locations would be.
Okay, so
Jeff Turner, I have a question. How long has this problem been in existence?
I have an answer for that.
I think I can answer that. I think it's been around for quite some time, but I think it's gotten worse because as the ponding has occurred, I think there's been settlement both of the driveway by the bell tower of the church, and also some settling of the sidewalk as well. So I think the ponding, I think you would agree, Sally, it's probably gotten a little deeper over the last several years.
I would say it has broken up the pavement more in the last several years because of the years of the expansion and contraction. But when DOT repaved back in 1995, they raised the level of the street, and the mayor and I had correspondence going since the late 90s about this. So it is a long-standing problem, and as things go, just as Bob just said, letting it go has made it actually become worse because of the freezing and thawing process down.
And that was true.
So there might have been a solution. There might have been a solution in 2003, but DOT did not allow you to tie into that system. Am I getting that correctly?
Right. So in 2003, we didn't add any pavement, but we dug up our pavement and put a new foundation under it. And at that time, we asked to add drainage there that would go into the street, and the answer was not if it was brick and mortar. And so the catch basin, you see that white car right there? Behind it at the curve, there is a catch basin, and that was, all of our drainage goes to Rand Place. Even the downspouts from the church, everything goes out our drive to the place. And that basin there behind the white car was new because we were trying to capture some runoff from our pavement. And then there's another catch basin between the Mance building and the church. It's just a little black dot there. And all drainage from the Mance, from the church, all of the downspouts go into lines that go out to the place because we've never been able to put anything into Main Street.
Question for Zach, and these catch basins are still brick and mortar, or have they been replaced with precast concrete?
They are currently hybrid, a bit of brick and mortar and a bit of cast concrete.
So they're both, okay.
Yeah, we have not rebuilt the entire basin as we've gone through there. Just mostly the loose bricks that are sitting on top. We bring it down to a course of brick that is still in pretty sturdy condition, then just start stacking.
So the tops have been rebuilt, but the bases remain brick and mortar. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay, okay. All right, so next steps. Can you suggest some next steps, Tom? Because I think, you know, Sally's anxious to move this forward. I think we all would like to remedy the situation because it really is a hazard, not only for people going to church, but for everybody that tries to traverse this section of sidewalk in the winter.
I think the next important step going forward would be to contact the appropriate person at DOT and bring them into this conversation and solicit their help and guidance in making this connection happen. If the catch basins are brick and mortar and we choose, say, 2 of those catch basins for a pump connection, perhaps as part of the project, we could replace those catch basins to precast concrete if that was a showstopper previously.
So I would say to expedite things, let's set up a conference call. Let's agree to do that now. I would suggest that we include myself, Sally, Zach, and Scott.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Okay.
Can I ask that you guys also have a wider lens and take a look at the Shane Place problem as well? Because I know Zach was talking about putting a Band-Aid on it this summer, and that was one of the things I was going to ask during your report, Zach. But as long as we're having these deep conversations about more than Band-Aids, I think it'd be great if you could expand the discussion to that as well, because that becomes a major problem down there as well. You guys all know what I'm talking about, right?
Yep.
Yes, we know by the entrance to the grain silo, right?
Yeah, yeah. Really gathers up water there. So
And
you guys could
one of
add that to the list.
One of the problems there, Dan, is that, and we knew this when we put in those the catch basin. So I think we can have Scott look at it, but the solution might be to elevate some of the and change the grade when we repave Shane Place, because the real struggle there is the high water level of the canal makes the flow from the north side of Shane Place very tangible to get it into the canal.
Oh gosh, my dog is barking. My apologies.
No worries, Dorothea. No worries. Renee, sorry.
Dorothea, I believe there's a message from a South Main Street resident.
Yes,
Okay,
we
I'm
have
going on
2
mute.
comments. We have 2 comments for the board. Would the board like me to read those?
Please.
Okay, Justin Bleacher is suggesting, what about pervious payment for the sidewalk? And then Elisa Plummer, she's relating, she fell in January on a clear sheet of ice where the ponding was in front of St. Louis. She's heading into her 3rd surgery on her hand as a result of this fall. I have a titanium plate in my wrist and unable to grip things completely. I hope the village can fix this so it doesn't happen again.
That's what we're working on tonight.
Thank you.
Okay. So
Hey,
Scott,
Bob,
This is
Yes.
Jeff again. For your conference call, we need to get straight the jurisdictional issue. You know, who's got jurisdiction out there? And I'd like to hear from the DOT about why they do or we do. So we can get
Okay,
that
I
straightened
agree.
out.
And I'd also like to make you part of the conference call, because I think wherever that conversation goes, we need to have you part of it. Is that all right?
That's perfect. That's fine.
Okay. Scott, do you have a person that we could have Dorothea coordinate a meeting?
The name that sticks in my mind is the individual, I believe, Zach helped me with my memory, but I think it was it Joshua, one of the engineers who met with us, and he's corresponded with you on some work on Route 31. He seems to have some level of communication with us. Would he be a good person to start with?
Yeah, probably. There's so many engineers there. I don't really know which one would be best to start with, but I think he is the design engineer for the 9631 repaving project. So that would probably be the best.
Well, perhaps
I'll be
we
in
could
the
start
office.
with him. Perhaps we could start with him, and if he's not the right person, he'll tell us who is. I mean, I'm happy to try to contact him and find out if he's the right person, and make sure that we do go to the right person to not get lost over there.
Great, thank you. Okay. All right, we have
Okay.
a plan. Could we move on to Rand Place and talk about the issue on Rand Place extension?
Sure.
And if we could call that aerial photograph up, so as Scott is talking, we can see where everything is located.
May I be recognized?
Yes.
I was not able to get a hold of Mr. Palumbo to let him know that we were speaking about this earlier than planned.
Does somebody have?
Lily, I pinged him and let him know, and we'll see if he's able to join.
I can also say that I did a summary sheet that Dorothea has that she could share with him if he would like.
Thank you, Scott. I know when we spoke
So-
with him on the site, I assured him that I would let him know when we were having this discussion.
Okay. So Rand Place, the situation is another drainage related issue. This area is on Rand Creek. Rand Creek has been the candidate for numerous improvement projects over the years that I've worked with you. Prior to my involvement, another engineering firm designed the gabions in this location that were indicated to be for erosion. At the time, it's about 30 lineal feet of a two-tiered gabion basket system on the corner there where Rand Place right-of-way meets the private bridge. There has been progressive degrading of the gabion basket with time and age, and it's starting to fail and release the stones that are part of the basket, and the bank has become unstable. So it would appear to be a candidate for replacement. I think the question is, what's the best technique to use in terms of replacing it? You can see by the lines on the screen that we accessed a lot of information to determine what utilities are reported to be there. Some we could observe from the surface, others are shown based on record information. Certainly the two sanitary manholes are there. There's a sanitary main that goes up to the sanitary manhole to the south. That is an 8-inch diameter pipe that goes right under the creek, right under the gabions. This area is kind of a convergence of multiple utilities. Gabions probably were a wise choice because they don't involve a lot of removal of earth. If we had the ability to widen the creek at this location, that would be good. But my concern is if we are to widen it, we have the potential to hit and or reduce substantially the cover of earth above many of these utilities. So I think further investigation is required to try to determine the depth of some of these utilities. We can determine the depth of the sanitary sewer quite easily. As for the water services, they'll be a little trickier. But this area certainly is experiencing what we've seen elsewhere along Ram Creek, which is high velocity flows. There is erosion bringing down these gabions, and there's erosion at the private bridge there. And we even wandered up to the gabions that we did some years ago, further up towards the electric lines, to see how they were holding up under current circumstances. And in that particular project, kind of a phase 2, we actually put in the creek bottom, what we call the gabion mattress, to reduce the scouring at the bottom portion of the last tier of gabions. And where that technique was used, that seems to be working. So some sort of creek channel bottom protection would probably be a good idea to implement as well, with whatever technique is eventually chosen. This creek is subject to permitting by New York State DEC and the Army Corps of Engineers, so we would need to get a permit from them to do the work, and they will weigh in on what techniques they are willing to approve. Currently, the most accepted ways of doing things are to use large stacked boulders. Also, I've seen used are soldier piles placed vertically with timber. Those are the two that I have seen most often these days.
I've got a question, Scott. So in terms of reinforcing the creek bottom, as we've talked previously about, one of the other issues here that's a problem is that the outlet underneath the driveway bridge for the shared driveway is undersized for the current flows that the creek experiences in rain events. As a result of that, there's kind of a jet action that occurs when it rains heavily that causes erosion on the downside of the bridge. I'm assuming that one of the reasons that you're recommending reinforcing the creek bed would be perhaps in part to address that effect of the water, flowing like a jet out of the bridge. What technique would you use to reinforce the creek bottom, and how would that interface with the bridge, which we don't own and is located on private property?
Well, I think in this particular case, if that ash tree that's shown there is removed, and I believe Mr. Palumbo said he was willing to do that, and we could open up that creek channel in that area more. It's currently restricted because of that tree that's migrated into the creek, and that's probably causing the gabions to fail more quickly than they would have failed otherwise. I think once we open up the channel area, then we automatically reduce the velocity, in addition to providing any treatment on the bottom of the channel as we've done before. We note that the gabions, when they're placed symmetrically and the mattress is tied into each side, right and left, that's a strong section, and that's held up very well if you walk up the creek from here. And then certain areas where the mattress was not tied in, the mattress is not held up so well.
Mm-hmm.
But I think velocity is reduced by opening the area. If we can open up the area and remove that tree, that would be a big help.
And now, when I look at the aerial photograph, and it says the green is electric, either overhead or underground, is
Right.
the green that passes along where it says Rand Place, that green line, is that under or over, or both?
That's aerial. That's aerial, and then from the pole it drops down and runs along the west side of the private drive. So electric is not a problem for us. So we've got gas shown here, and the white is sanitary. But biggest one that jumps out at me, or the two biggest ones that jump out at me, are sanitary and water, the water services and that sanitary 8-inch.
And what
So I think we
color
need
is
to do, sanitary is white.
Okay, got it. Got it. I see. Okay. And it's actually under the street. So at least we don't have any utilities between the edge of the street pavement and the prism of the creek. Is that right?
I think the sanitary sewer, according to the direction, comes through the creek bed just outside of the bridge, just to the east of the bridge is the sanitary main.
It crosses
Crossing
the
the-
creek, right?
It crosses under the creek. Yep. Yeah.
Right. But the sanitary main is under Rand Place itself. What we were worried about is if there were utilities between the edge of the asphalt pavement and the prism of the creek itself, which it appears there are not. Other than
At present, that's
water
correct.
lines that are crossing underneath. So that's better. So I guess the other question I have is regrading isn't possible between the edge of the pavement and the creek itself to also widen up the creek a little bit? Would that help?
I don't think, given the amount of utilities that we have there, that we have a lot of wiggle room for grading towards Rand Place. I think there's more opportunity grading on Mr. Palumbo's property if he's willing to do so. The blue line that you see there, coming from the catch basin, is a storm line. We could trim that back a little bit. There's then a pine tree and I think there's a guy wire and a power pole in that area as well, and plus the water services, and the water services need to have a certain amount of cover above them so they don't freeze. That's all kind of difficult to navigate in terms of trying to broaden the section of the creek by way of excavation in that area. I think removing the tree will provide a great benefit. That's blocking quite a bit of flow as we speak.
May I interrupt? I apologize. This is Rich Palumbo. I wanted you to know I'm on the line.
Sure.
When you were out, I asked if somebody from the village would let me know who owns the tree in that little peninsula, but I never heard back. Do you know who owns that area? Is it mine or is it Len Parker's?
Based on the current mapping that we have, it looks like the tree is half into the Rand Place right of way and half onto your property as well.
Okay.
Based on the map that you see before you.
I don't have any problem with having it removed.
And I think we would be willing to remove it, Rich, just to help this thing along, because Scott has, just before you tuned in here, he was saying that he believes removal of that tree will allow regrading, which will open up the creek prism and hopefully reduce the rate of erosion.
Right, we talked about that when he was out.
Right.
That's acceptable to me. I just have to be really clear. I think as you move from the tree, God, I don't know what the direction is, southwesterly, whatever it is, towards the bridge. I think now we're into Len's property, certainly not mine. So you should all be mindful of that. It's easy for me to give my permission, but I certainly can't speak for Len on that.
Is this little segment, do you see, well, you can't see, and I see where the corner of Rand Place is, and there's a little pie-shaped piece, and I'm assuming that's Len's property right there.
That's what I assume. Remember that I bought this house in a foreclosure, so as it turned out, I never had a survey. So my only understanding of lot lines is from Zillow, which is helpful, but not particularly precise. So what I do know is that Len owns a good chunk, 10 or 15 feet of what I would call my front yard, or my boundary that runs along that driveway. And I think it extends all the way down across the creek. So at some point, I would assume we're entering Len's property there.
And it
We can
looks
check
like
we can check into that.
if this aerial map is correct, Rich, it looks like the right-of-way of Rand Place actually intrudes a little bit on the bridge. From the looks of the aerial photograph, part of the bridge is actually in the right-of-way.
Correct.
I want to follow a line of conversation because it's an important issue. Because again, I want to go back to the issue of the bed of the creek to ensure that when we make these improvements, they last. How do we ensure, it sounded from my prior discussion with you, Scott. Oh, I'm sorry, Steve, I didn't recognize you and you've had your hand waving. Go ahead.
Yeah, there was something we discussed or thought about in stormwater practices. They use rocks and small bridges in a ditch line to slow down the water. So I had mentioned this to Scott before, and I didn't know anybody giving any thoughts to putting some sort of breaks back to the southwest along the creek, so that when the water surges, it has some breaks prior to hitting that bridge and hitting that area. You could go back up creek and put some rock piles to slow down the flow and maybe back some of that water up. And most definitely that tree is causing the water to go to the left and undercut that whole gabion area. You know, that's one thing Scott found when we were there, and that tree, if that was removed, would widen that greatly. And if we slowed the water down prior to there, the two things would probably have a great effect on what happens downstream.
Just to
Steve,
follow your conversation, your point, Steve, we'd need an easement because the creek goes overland behind the houses on Rand Place. So we would have to acquire an easement to do that. But I would still like Scott's opinion if he thinks that would help.
I think that anytime you can put in a large mass like a boulder or something like that that can take the energy out of the water that's coming at you, I think it's a good thing. What this creek has always managed to do is surprise me over the years. And one of the concerns I have is that if you do put boulders upstream to dissipate the energy, if that storm event is more powerful than you expected it to be, those stones will roll down the creek and they'll potentially plug, you know, a private bridge like this, and then we've got an overflow condition potentially. But I think it's worth looking at in terms of a tool or a technique that might assist us. And yes, I think in order to do that, we would need some type of an easement to place a structure within the creek bed to do that.
Another question for you, Scott. Because we know there's erosion on the creek bed, do you think, and from my prior discussion, I think we agreed that it seemed like the big rocks was the most viable way to reinforce the wall where the gabions are now. How do we ensure that they aren't undercut? In other words, that because we can't go deep with a foundation, that the action of the creek itself won't undercut the stones and eventually move them?
Well, I think that's a good question. We might be able to over excavate the creek bottom and line those with stone as well. I actually have an inquiry into the DEC regarding that exact issue to ask them what they recommend under these circumstances, because they are the ones who are, they and the Army Corps are extremely sensitive about that issue.
Scott, I have a question on that. It's one I raised when you were here. If you were to use that approach, would it require some form of ongoing maintenance from the village?
A stacked stone placed along the side there?
Yeah.
Is that what you're referring?
Yeah.
I think it would require monitoring from time to time. Hopefully when it's installed, it's heavy duty and relatively permanent. But as we're seeing, all these drainage improvements do involve some level of maintenance or at least monitoring.
So I'm completely agreeable to that approach. The only thing I would ask is, if we're going to do that the village establishes at the same time what its monitoring or maintenance program will be, schedules, activities, so that we don't fall behind again. Is that fair?
I think we
With the-
should do
with the
that as
board?
part of the design, Rich. I think that makes
Yes.
sense for all of us, because we don't want to
Okay.
do this again.
No,
Okay, so
I'm
next
on board with
steps,
that approach then.
I think one thing that we know we have to do, and because part of it is in the village right of way, I think we should authorize Zach to have that tree removed at village expense. It'll be necessary
Good with-
anyway. Sooner we get it
Good with-
out of there, the better for everybody.
You have my consent.
Everybody in agreement with that?
Yes, understanding that Mr. Lunn has to be contacted as well.
Yes, understanding that we will be in touch with Len Parker and let him know. I think the tree, if I'm correct, I don't think the tree is on his property though. From the best I can read this aerial photograph, it looks like none of it is on property that Len Parker owns.
Oh, okay.
Just so you all know, I'm in contact with Len
Okay.
about this stuff. I don't think he'll object, but in addition to contacting him, I intend to contact him as well. So, and I certainly don't want to do anything that wouldn't be
I think
acceptable
that's,
to him.
well,
I
it
think that
certainly
would
is a
be.
courtesy. We want to keep him informed because we don't want to
Yeah.
surprise anyone here, and we want to get everybody's input who's affected by the work that's going to be done. Okay.
Sounds great.
All right. So next steps, we'll take out the tree. I think the other next step, I guess, is Scott's gonna have to do some design and come up with a schematic proposals that we could all look at together. Does that make sense to you, Scott?
Yes.
Okay.
Scott, I have
So,
a question for you. I'm sorry, Bob. Finish your thought.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Rich.
My question for you is, does taking out the tree destabilize it further? Is there a timing thing? Is there a better time to take away the tree when you are ready to do certain tasks?
I think what's evident, I think everyone looking at it right now is I think there's a certain amount of instability that's created when the tree comes out, and that could be related to future weather conditions, which I can't predict. But right now the creek is not flowing too full. If the bank is allowed to heal from the removal of that tree and vegetation takes up, then that would be a good thing. By the same token, if for some reason the tree is removed, the soil is raw, and we don't get vegetation there, we could experience erosion. It's not perfectly predictable.
But I think overall, Scott, I think it's advantageous to take out the tree because right now it's confining the stream bed. By removal of that, it will allow regrading, a less steep slope, and it will confine the water less, which actually should cut down. It's this time of year is typically drier. It's probably about the best time to do it. We may have a rain event, but there's no time of year that we wouldn't have that possibility. So I would say the sooner we could take out the tree, the better. The tree is going to die in the near future anyway because it's an ash tree. It hasn't been treated. Its days are numbered, so it has to come out anyway. So I think the sooner we get rid of it, the better.
Can I make a point?
Sure.
The tree should not be a problem getting out of there. The root system, the root ball is going to be an issue just given the location of it. Getting a root cut or a stump grinder down in there is going to be difficult, so most likely it's going to have to be dug out, which could disturb a lot of the earth. And it's also a lot bigger project than just getting a stump grinder in. I just want to make that point.
Zach, could we take the tree out and cut it flush with the grade and try to shape it as best we can and not rip it out of there? Could we leave the root system in to hold us?
But that's kind of what we're trying to get rid of here is the whole root ball and the root system. That
Right.
is.
I agree. This is Rich. I've stared at that area a lot, and I agree with Zach. I don't think you can open the flow in that area without taking out the root system.
which I don't know
Okay.
how deep the utilities are, especially the water going through that area there, but it's a good possibility that we're going to have a lot of roots that are going to be tied around those pipes. And again, the only way to probably get that out is to be in there with a backhoe trying to dig it out, which is also
Well,
going to,
one of
Yeah.
the things we'd have to do is flag where the lines are when we get to that point. But I think this still the first step, getting the mass of the tree just out of the way. It's in this season, it's diseased, it's going to die. And what I've noticed with the emerald ash borer, when they attack a tree like that, they go very quickly from being full foliage, full canopy of foliage, to where they're dropping limbs. So I still think the sooner we get the canopy out, the better.
the tree is probably 75%, 25% dead at this point. So yeah, it is infected and it's got to go. The other thing is that bringing in a backhoe is all going to be done from from Mr. Palumbo's side of the creek, and we are going to be tearing up a lot of that lawn. I just want everybody to be aware.
I missed the last part of your statement, if that was Zach.
The work to get
You
the
said-
tree out of there is going to have to be done from your side of the property, Rich.
Right. Yes.
Just given the condition of the gabions, we're not going to be able to get large equipment on that side and have it be stable. So big trucks, backhoe, it's all going to have to be done from your side.
Are we talking about damage?
Yeah, there's probably going to be some damage. We'll obviously repair it as best as possible. With taking out that size of a tree with a root ball is going to be massive, which means that whole bank is going to open it.
Mm-hmm. The only things there that
Are we talking about work in our right of way?
Kind of.
Yeah.
In our right of way from private property.
The tree straddles the line between the right of way, and some of it is on Rich's property.
So aren't we going to need a temporary kind of work easement or something?
Yes.
that's
The
not
tree-
a problem.
The tree we could normally take down, usually if it's on the line. But if we're going to do anything beyond that with the roots, we really should have a signed agreement from Rich that he's agreeable to it.
I'm agreeable to that in principle. Just let me tell you that I only pause in this respect. I've really worked hard to put what I think are nice plantings in along the embankment, and I would just not want to see those lost or damaged. Some of them are grasses, tall ornamental grasses. They will be dead by, you guys help me, October or so,
Yes.
or dormant,
Yeah,
I
when
should
the
say.
hard frost comes, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and I assume they won't be permanently damaged under those circumstances. I just don't know. That's all I care. I understand there will be temporary damage. I understand you're going to repair it. I don't want to start over. I put a lot of effort into it.
It may be
We'll
best to
coordinate.
dig them out of there once we figure out where exactly we're going to have to do the work from. We can get a better idea of where we're going to be. And what
One
we're
of the
doing.
things
I'm agreeable in concept. I just don't want permanent damage. That's all I'm asking.
one of the things that Scott will do in developing a preliminary concept design of where the stones would go is he will also determine the project limits to determine how far we'll have to go and how much of an area will need to be excavated. Is that right, Scott?
Yeah, I'd be happy to take a closer look at it now that we've had this discussion and talk with Zach and see if we can figure out how to surgically do this, if you will, to achieve a minimum the minimum trauma to the lawn area and surrounds.
I don't give a damn about the lawn. I've already had to put in one new lawn. I don't care about that part. It's just all the plantings on the embankment. Just, I don't want to belabor this point, but the creek was eroding my property so much that I worked really hard to put plantings on my side to stabilize things. So I put myrtle on the top and I put ivy on the walls, and it was a lot, and I built that stone wall. It's been a lot of effort. I just don't want to have to redo all that stuff.
We understand. So let me just summarize next steps here. So Scott, you're going to check with DEC to verify what treatments they would find acceptable in a situation like this. Then you will proceed to do a concept illustration of a solution with the rocks, and then come back and report to us again at a future village board meeting. Do I understand that correctly?
Yes.
Okay, great. Any other comments before we move on to other items?
Thank you all for giving this attention. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Rich.
Glad you could tune in, Rich.
Yeah, a little bit late, but thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, take care. All right, while we still have Scott, and he does have to go, so this will be quickly, but he did take a look everybody for extending the sidewalk on State Street as we had talked with the residents about. If you want to talk about that just briefly so everybody's brought up to speed.
Well, we've created a little map of that as well, and that seems feasible. We're still refining our design of that, but I think it's roughly 150 feet or so of additional sidewalk to be extended in that direction, and it seems that can be accomplished without too much difficulty. But I guess I would prefer to get our plans a little more updated for you, and perhaps go through the same process that we've gone through here with these two projects that we just discussed. So you'll have a chance to take a look at what we've come up with. We're not quite to the same development level at this point in time.
And I think that makes sense because we're on a longer schedule with State Street, because we also, Renee and I spoke with the DOT back in July, and we're trying to determine the optimal location for potentially a crosswalk on State Street.
Okay.
You want to add anything to that, Renee? No, okay.
No,
okay.
I'm good.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, with that, I think, is there anything else, Scott, before you go?
No, I think that's it for me. I'm afraid I have to sign off, but I think I'll see you again on the computer for the next project and the ones we talked about tonight.
See you soon. Thank you, Scott.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
Mayor Corby,
Yes.
I'm requesting a change in the agenda. Because we heard Scott first, I'm wondering if we might listen to Nicholas Perron's presentation.
I was going to suggest that. I was going to thank you for waiting patiently, Nicholas, and you have the floor.
You get, wait, does he get some sort of badge for listening to all that drainage coverage?
I don't think so.
Yes, he learned
You
a
should
lot.
get some extra credit.
Learned a lot. Everyone, this is Nicholas Perron, and he is a Eagle Scout candidate. And he has a project he would like to propose for the village that would complete his Eagle Scout requirements. Nicholas, you have the floor.
Okay, can you pull up my PowerPoint?
Absolutely, Nicholas. Give me 1 minute.
Nicholas,
Yes.
do you get nervous when you have to speak in public?
A little bit, but not much.
We're all, let me tell you this. Are you prepared? It looks like you're prepared.
Yes,
so
I
there's
am.
nothing to worry about. And nobody on this call is scary.
So, I have some options for what I want to do, and I feel that it is important to like honor those who fought for our freedom and that. Okay.
Okay.
So, as you all know, I'm Nicholas. Currently I'm a Life Scout for Troop 167, and I'm working towards my Eagle Scout. And I have chosen to propose this project as it feels important to honor those who have fought for our freedom. Or the next slide. So my troop has been placing flags in the village on Memorial Day, Flag Day, Independence Day, Labor Day, Columbus Day, and Veterans Day. And the current map that we have was made approximately 15 years ago, and there are 22 flag locations, but my troop is only able to locate 15 of them because some have gone missing from changes in the sidewalk or grass overgrowth, and there are currently 27 flags available in the American Legion. Next slide. Okay, so the current flag poles, flags and flag poles are in good condition. The flag sleeves, as what you can see from the pictures, there have been caps that have gone missing, and water and dirt has entered them, and we are unable to fully clean them out, and able to seat the flags properly because of the dirt. And I have 3 options to present. Next slide. So proposal 1 involves 22 locations on the original map as shown in the picture. We'll be replacing those and adding the ones that have gone missing back. I would lead a group of volunteers in replacing them with replacing the existing locations with new sleeves and caps, along with the missing sleeve locations. Next slide. So option 2 would involve option 1, along with 8 additional sleeves along North Main Street toward the Village Hall. This would make there be 30 flags locations. Next slide, please. Option 3 would involve option 1 and 2, along with adding 8 locations along Monroe Ave from Main Street to the fire station west, and 3 additional along south of Monroe Ave, symmetrically with the flags on the north side of Monroe Ave in that area. Additionally, I would like to, next slide, please. Additionally, I'd like to propose that we add 6 flags along the pathway to the memorial, or 4 along the pathway. I will show you a map at the end of my presentation so you can better see the locations that I'm proposing. Next slide, please. All of the sleeves will be flush with the grass and sidewalk to allow for maintenance of the area and safety of pedestrians. Our work to ensure minimal disturbance to the current sidewalk by drilling the holes for the new sleeves and using epoxy cement to secure them. This project will take place on 1 or 2 weekends to ensure minimal disturbance to the local storefronts. Next slide, please. So from the village, I would ask to borrow safety vest if possible to maintain safety for my volunteers. I would also request assistance with purchasing the sleeves and additional poles and flags. Now can you pull up my map, please? So the green are the ones that we are able to find and locate. The red are the ones that are marked but not there, and then the yellow are the ones that would be added in the different options. And if possible, I'd like to complete this project before Veterans Day. Are there any questions from anyone?
Thank you, Nicholas. I do have a couple of questions. This is Trustee Lanphier. I have been communicating with you by email for the past month over the project. The questions are, is the expectation that the village will provide funding, or are you going to seek outside donations?
Either is possible. I can seek outside funding.
Okay. My second question is, and you wouldn't know this until this evening, but the Veterans Park is in town property, and we would need to speak with them regarding disruption of that park and placement of flags. With the need for permission. Okay, so that's the other. The other, I would recommend to you a meeting with the head of the DPW to flesh out the details of the core drilling, cement, and placement.
Okay.
I'd like to make a suggestion also. I'm sorry, Lily, I didn't, are you finished?
Oh, that's fine.
The two other steps, we need to find a supplier that will provide the materials that you listed that the village might purchase. And we'll need to develop a budget for how much that is projected to cost, so we can see if we have money in the budget that we could allocate to that purpose.
Okay.
I believe also, Nicholas, correct me if I'm wrong, isn't part of your requirement for Eco project to secure donations from local businesses, etc., or no?
So for that, we're able to seek out donations or the like who we're doing the project for, like they're allowed to provide the materials if they would like.
Okay.
In this case,
Nicholas, this is Trustee Keating. First of all, you did great on the presentation. It looks really good, and it was really clear what you were asking for, and really you did an excellent job on it. One comment to follow up on what Trustee Lanphier said. When she said you should have a meeting with the head of the DPW, that's Zach, and he's on the call. So Zach, you want to wave to him? Are you there? Yeah, so that's Zach right there. So that's who you'll be meeting with.
Hi, Nick.
Hi.
And then the next thing I had, I just wanted to understand a little bit of the history of this. Where did you get the idea? I think it's a terrific idea. Tell me how you first got the idea.
Well, doing that, like helping put up the flags over the years of being a scout, like I've like the conditions just gotten worse over the time, and there are like a few on the map that we can't find. And,
that's great. Yeah. So you saw,
and the reason that
there was a problem. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, give a little history. These were initially put in the mid 1980s when the Department of Transportation rebuilt State Street and Main Street through the center of the village. And so we've watched over the years as they've become corroded. Some of them have gotten lost. We've even talked about this in the last year or so because Zach, our DPW superintendent, the crew have struggled to maintain these because some of them have gotten in very rough and poor conditions. So your project, I agree with what Dan said. You have a very complete project. I'm also really glad to see the expansion looked at as part of the project, because it really is a wonderful way to celebrate the memory of our veterans in this community in a very visible statement on the major holidays when the flags are put up in place. And it's something that's become a tradition in the village over the years, and something that I'm very proud of that it still occurs.
Nicholas, would you like to email me regarding dates of your availability, and we'll set up a meeting? We can either do it by Zoom, or we can do, if there are just 3 of us, perhaps you would be comfortable meeting outside with masks.
Okay.
Maybe walk the route.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe meeting on site to kind of walk the areas and actually physically see where you want to install the new ones and where the ones that are broken or just covered or missing are.
Yes, thank you, Zach.
Yep.
Okay, I look forward to hearing from you, Nicholas, and I thank you. You did a great job.
Thanks.
Nicholas, on behalf of all of us, I want to thank you for undertaking this project. And this is a great community service. So wonderful. Thank you very much for a great presentation. And we look forward to helping you get this project completed.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thanks again.
How you doing, Nick?
All right. Good night.
Bye, Nicholas.
Next item we have is, I'm going to go back to the beginning of the agenda because we skipped over Zach. And let's go, skipped over Steve. And Steve, if we could do the building inspector's report.
All right, yeah, everybody should have my report. If there's any questions on it, anything on the report.
Any questions for Steve?
Pardon?
I've spoken to Steve, so I don't have any. I'm up to date, I believe. Okay, let's move on. DPW report, Zach? Anything in addition to what you included in the packet?
No. The only thing I did want to do is talk about the roof clips for the Village Hall roof. Just so I can get maybe a decision made whether going with clips or the clips and rails, just so I can reach out to Easton, because they tend to take a long time once I set the motion forward to get them on the schedule. So if we can do that tonight, maybe make a decision on that, then I can talk to them, and maybe by January or February we can have them installed.
I would just like to weigh in as an architect on the board. In all the projects that I have used clips, in many of them, if there is a serious slide like the ones that we have on our standing seam copper roof on the building, the clips tend to give way. I think even though it's a little more money, the bars held by clips are much more durable and more effective in stopping the ice. Again, I'm reminding everybody the purpose of this project is to stop the ice slides that we've been experiencing over the front door facing Main Street, as well as the side entrance at the handicapped ramp. Any questions? I'd like to make a motion to authorize Zach to move forward with the bar option for clips on the roof to prevent ice slides over the 2 doors.
I'll second that.
Is there a second?
Keating.
Okay. Dorothea, could you do a vote?
Trustee Stetser?
Stetser, aye.
Trustee Lampier?
Lampier, aye.
Trustee Keating?
Keating, aye.
Trustee Galusha? Frank, you're muted.
Yeah, Trustee Galusha, aye.
Mayor Corby?
Corby, aye.
Motion passes.
Okay,
Very good.
anything else, Zach?
Do you guys have any questions for me?
I do.
Oh, go ahead, Renee. I'll go after you.
Okay, thanks. Trustee Stetser, in your packet, you have Trustee Lampier asked you to put together an estimate and Scott for the sidewalk extension. So what are we waiting for from Scott Harder? Just because we have an estimate from Zach here on that sidewalk extension from State Street, which is $6,843. So what do we need to marry up with what Zach has provided and what Scott is looking at for the sidewalk?
I think the only thing is we need an agreement from DOT where we can have the crosswalk. That's the only piece that I think we're missing.
No, but earlier Scott said he was going to go back and put together some more information on the sidewalk. Am I misunderstanding what happened?
I think, yeah, I think maybe there was a slight misunderstanding there, Renee. You're right. I don't think we need a graphic on the sidewalk there because I think it's self-explanatory.
So do we
we'll
have
follow
do we have what we need? Then we should probably tell Scott to stand down now so he doesn't
Yes,
do any more
yes.
work.
You are
So
correct.
So what Zach provided with us is enough?
I believe so.
Okay.
Zach, do you agree?
Yeah, the only thing missing here are just details of how we're going to terminate it. So if we extend the sidewalk down to the village line and then return it back to the street, it's just dead ending right there. So without having any kind of crosswalk there, you're kind of defeating the purpose of having that sidewalk, as far as I'm concerned. You may as well return it back to the street where the existing sidewalk stops now. So until there are further details on the plan for State Street repaving, I don't know if it's really something that should be considered at this point. It just seems like an added expense that's unnecessary.
Yeah.
Unless there's a crosswalk installed somewhere. Yep.
Trustee Lampier.
Lily, you have the floor.
Thank you. When we discussed it, and also with Scott, we had to go to the town and ask for the extension to the light pole because he felt that that was a natural place to stop the sidewalk, and also
Correct.
a natural spot to have the crosswalk.
And I have spoken to Bill. I have spoken to Bill Smith, and conceptually, Bill has no problem with that whatsoever. So I think we can guarantee we'll have collaboration with the town.
So does this estimate from Zach though doesn't include all the way to the light pole, or it does? It just says village line here. Is that?
I brought it right to the light pole and then returned it to the street.
Okay. All right.
But then where do the pedestrians go from there? Is it?
Well, we have to have a subsequent conversation with DOT to get them to agree to allow us to have a mid-block crosswalk there.
All right. The other thing is on the opposite side of the road, on the north side of the road, there's a pretty steep grade going from where the sidewalk is down to the road, in which it might not be ADA compliant putting a crosswalk in directly right there, which means that it may have to move down to the other side of the driveway at the last house before the village line.
That's why I suggested we better have another site meeting out there to make sure that we are crossing at the right place, and we're going to have to vet it with DOT because they will have to approve the crosswalk. We're going to have to get everybody on board here because to get DOT to approve this, we'll probably have to include Bill Smith and include him in a meeting that we have again with DOT. So it's not quite as simple as it sounds at first.
Agreed.
Okay.
Now, I think I've got a question about the funds that are available for this. This is Trustee Galusha. We approved $9,000 for sidewalks in the 2020-21 budget. I don't think we included this sidewalk extension in with those numbers. So we're going to be over the budget if we do this year. Zach, did you talk to Mary to see if we have the funds available to do this?
Yeah, I think there aren't too many funds available for something like this right now. If anything, I think after we put together a better plan and talk to the DOT and the town and find out about mid-block crossings and where we can terminate it, then maybe it could be a springtime project once we get those details sorted out and see what kind of funds are going to be available at that point.
Yeah, and the resurfacing, this is Trustee
think
Stetser, resurfacing won't happen until 2022, so it may be that it would need to coincide with that too. I don't really know. We've got to figure all of this out.
I would
There's a
expect that
There's a long
you guys
range
have
element
not.
to this. I think the other thing is just to get DOT buy-in, that we were nudging them along at the last meeting. I think we made some progress, but I think we're going to have at least one more meeting with them to get a verified, what they told us when we spoke to them in July is they're going to be drawing up schematic plans for the striping of this section of State Street. And then we'll have another conversation to sort of push again for the mid-block crosswalks. They were resisting the entire time. Renee and I were pushing hard to get both the crosswalk restored at Shane Place and State Street, as well as the mid-block one where the sidewalk ends. They were suggesting that they would prefer to see the sidewalks on both sides of State Street go out in the town to Wood Creek Drive and have a crosswalk there. That's something that we can't fund because it's in the town, and we would have to take even longer to see if the town would find money. There are a number of other, I think there's 3 other houses that front on Route 31 that are in the town. And part of that discussion was carrying the residential tree-lined character of the street further out into the town to create a transition zone that would visually cue people to slow down as they enter the village. Do you agree with that, Renee?
Yes, I agree. That's what it's sort of a chicken or the egg thing. They're saying it still doesn't feel, to borrow John Lindbeck's words, they're still seeing it not totally as a residential neighborhood, and it is. So all of these suggestions will help us. Again, not one thing will solve the traffic calming issues there, but each one of these little pieces together can help us kind of transform that area. I mean, what Lily's suggesting with the planters and beautification and the signs, and then if we can get them to restripe the lanes a little bit narrower and lower the speed into that transition zone, all of these little things help. And I know the neighbors at State Street are very concerned that if we just put a crosswalk, that someone's going to get killed. And that's one of the concerns of the DOT as well. So, one of the advantages of having a crosswalk there is that there'll be striping and visual cues, and then we can put one of those signs in the middle. So we got to try a million things to try to take back our residential street here.
And
I went on a bender, sorry. I didn't mean to go on a bender.
That's okay. I want to hit on one other point that we talked about because some of the residents have tuned in and I want them to hear this. In our meeting with DOT, what they kept saying to us is, well, we'll look at how many people cross the street there now to determine if a crosswalk is necessary. And that's ridiculous because if you don't have safe conditions and you're discouraging people to cross the street, that's not a barometer of what the actual need is. It's when you create comfortable conditions and you facilitate pedestrian movements that you actually create conditions that are conducive to the type of pedestrian movements that you want on a walkable, friendly residential street. And so we pushed hard, really disagreeing with them that this is not all about looking what exists. It's about what kind of conditions we need to create to have a truly walkable village. Okay. Anything else?
Go ahead, Bob.
Lily, did you? Yeah.
Lily or me?
Zachary,
Frank, you're up. You go.
Excuse me, trustee Galusha here. Zach, you've got a comment, but before you make your comment, I'm in favor of the extension of that sidewalk. I've actually used that sidewalk area, and it could be very dangerous trying to cross the street. So I'm in favor of that, but I'm also very conscious of our constraints with regards to the budget. And Zach, you and I and the mayor have not reached the sidewalk planning that we are working on. But I want to be sure that we have the funds to do the sidewalk work that we want to do within the village and do this project. So I'm going to be following up, and I think, Zach, maybe you could follow up with Mary to see if we have the funds available for this project, because, well, I do think it's an important project.
I don't know that we were considering doing it this year necessarily. I think Lily requested it so we had the number, so we would know if we did have funds, or how do we work it in. And so, sorry, I jumped in.
That's okay. No, I think we
You had
agree with
something
that,
to say,
Renee.
Zach?
I'm sorry?
Zach, you had something to say? Because I saw you say you had your hand up.
Yeah, I was going to say, now that we have the means to be able to record the data from the speed sentry on State Street, I was gonna reach out to the DOT to see if they would allow us to put the mock-up bump outs back on State Street for a couple of weeks, just to see if it does have any effect on speed going down.
That is a great idea, Zach. Do it.
Great idea. Go for it.
So data to prove that it is functional, that it has some impact on it, if it does.
Yeah, that'd be great.
All right, I'll talk to one of them, someone.
well, the Justin one said that he thought it was working. The man from the DOT. He said,
all right.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Hey, Zach,
Okay. Anything else?
Zach, one question for you. We talk about this every time. Is we talked about it was on the list to improve the drainage near the grain elevator. So and it was on the list for this summer. We're starting to lose the summer. Is that still on the list?
Yes, it's still on the list.
Okay.
Starting next week, we're going to be we should be wrapping up South Street, patching it and replacing the manhole frames and lids tomorrow. And starting next week, I'm hoping that we'll shift over to Shane Place and the canal path and start repairing the asphalt in those areas. In
Okay.
which I will try to get some asphalt down in that location, but I think that is just going to push water downstream and have it collect somewhere else.
Yeah.
To fix that problem, the road has to be looked at in a whole, and that's really the only way it's going to solve the problem.
Thanks, Zach.
We can't just drop it in a catch basin right there, because we'd have nothing to tie it into without running drainage pipe, which is going to be a big project.
Understood. Thank you, Zach.
You're welcome.
Okay. Steve?
Yeah, I had something I thought about that I wanted to address with the board. There are two items. And Justin Leister's on here too, and he might want to speak to this, but we received the application from David Jewett for the Christmas trees again. And there's an issue of violations on the property and then allowing that function to happen. I didn't know how we wanted to address that as a village, because David Jewett's been here for, I believe, 16 years or so, selling the Christmas trees. And I didn't know how the board wanted me to address that as far as the dairy goes. And the same said, I'm going to have to go after Charlie Fox for some things, and I wanted authorization from the board to do that.
And I just want to disclose, and I'm going to recuse myself from the discussion regarding Dave Jewett, because my family owns the property. So I just want to go on the record that I'll recuse myself from that part of the discussion.
Which one do we want to discuss first?
The David Jewett one, I guess, is the one, because the application is on the desk right now, for him to apply to do the Christmas tree sales, but like I said, there are violations on the property, and technically he should not be authorized, but he's been there 16 years, so I didn't know how, if we wanted to make it happen or how we could make it happen as a village.
I mean, it's not his fault that there are violations. These are not his violations. And this is an important tradition in our village. It's an important piece of bringing people here and just the sense of community around that during the holidays. I don't know if anyone else has some comments, but I hesitate punishing him for for violations that are beyond his control.
Frank, you're on mute.
Pardon, Dan?
Steve,
Yeah.
what is the violation or violations?
Well, it's the back building at the dairy, the house that's in disarray, the pond in back is a mess. I've asked that to be cleaned up. Same as over on the Fox property. He has some ponds that need to be cleaned up, and at this point, I've been just requesting it without having to do a formal route, but nothing's being done.
So is it a matter of just cleaning up, a matter of maintenance?
The dairy one is the house that's in back. The house is in very bad condition. It's being left open. It's going to become a safety issue if it's not already. I've never been in it, but it is a mess, and all the stuff around it is a mess. And for a fine establishment like the dairy, let that house go to pot and back, I think it's a shame.
It seems to me that Jeff Turner has been working on that house situation over the years, but what specifically do the violations have to do with the Christmas tree sales?
It's a special, I don't remember which permit, it's a special permit or a temporary permit through the planning and zoning board, but technically by the law or by our code, you're not supposed to authorize that function when there is a violation on the property.
Okay, all right. So it really has nothing to do with the Christmas tree sales. It's the fact that there's an existing violation.
Correct.
Okay. Jeff, you've worked on that situation with that house over the years. Do you have any comments?
I have not actually, Frank, worked on that situation. I think it's been Scott Harder and Steve or Steve's predecessor that have been trying to work on that process. The concept behind tying any future permitting to remedying of violations is it is the easiest enforcement mechanism that the village has. It doesn't cost anything, and that's why it's in the code. Now, it doesn't. There is a way to do this without actually getting them completely remedied. If there is a plan for a time frame for the violations to be cured, and the owner and the village can enter into an agreement with regard to that plan, then the permitting process can go forward, because Steve then can remove the violations as an impediment to future permitting. But he's got to have some cooperation and plan from the applicant or the owner, sorry, about how things are going to be remedied. That's really all I've got to say, is that there's a possible way forward, but it does take cooperation.
Steve, have you approached the owners in any way about this?
I have talked to Charlie in regards to some of the items, yes, and I haven't seen any action yet. I've talked to several parties in regard to this, and there are you know, there are apparently some future plans, but nothing is solid yet. And, you know, like I said, I guess I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place. So you know, how hard do I push here? You know, I don't want to issue another violation, but I would think the village would want to see some sort of progress on the area. And they, as Jeff said, it's an easy way of enforcement, or to keep somebody, or to try and keep somebody, you know, on a path. You know, I guess I'm looking for some direction. You know, I mean, how hard do I push? You know, do we get Jeff involved? Is it, you know, is it just on me to, you know, I don't want to issue another violation, because if I do that, that even makes it worse.
Can I suggest that perhaps Steve, you and I and Jeff Turner work on this? Maybe we can come up with an agreement relatively quickly so that we don't hinder the Christmas tree sale operation. Are you in agreement with that? Are you in agreement with that, Jeff?
I would
Do we wanna
certainly be
work-
willing to be part of that process, although I would be at the tail end of the process. I think the process is to get some kind of agreement in principle between the property owner and the village, and that probably, I think you're right, Frank, it should be done at the trustee level with Steve's assistance.
Yes.
So I'm happy to be involved in whatever way you want me involved, but I think the first part is to get a schedule.
To get a schedule of the work that needs to be done?
Remedying the violation. Steve put together a list of the violations and meet with the property owner and put together a schedule of what needs to be done and when it's going to be done, and we enter into some kind of agreement, and that cures the violation, and the Christmas tree permit can issue.
Steve, do you have the list of the violations?
I can, yes, I have a partial, and then there are others that I should add, some things that are going on that I should add to what's already existing there.
Okay.
I guess would that, I mean, I see Justin's on here, would that be a workable solution for the planning and zoning board?
Are you there, Justin?
Well, Steve, that's really up to you. I mean,
Well,
you're the one
yeah.
that's got,
Right,
you're
but-
the one that's got the violation issue.
Yes, technically.
And whether that application actually gets to the planning board or the zoning board of appeals is up to you. If it gets to them, they'll act on it. It's not the planning board or the zoning board of appeals call to say there's a violation, we're not going to process this. That starts at the application acceptance level.
Okay. All right, the other thing I agree with that, then I will reach out to Mr. Corby and try and work up a plan. The schedule right now, I mean, we have a little bit of time. That I'm glad it came in early, because this may take a little bit, and I just wanted to make sure we could, you know, have this process and get it done before, or so he knows that he's going to be able to operate.
So Steve, my suggestion would be that you get your list, that you sit down with Frank and figure out a game plan, then call Mr. Corby and have a meeting and figure it all out.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes, I
that's a
agree with
suggestion.
that.
I don't have any authority to tell you to do that. That was just a suggestion.
That's a very good suggestion. Thank you, sir. Dorothea, do you remember anything with regards to that house? Do you remember any issues? It seems to me like that has come up previously.
I'm
Definitely.
sorry, I was stepped away. Which house are we talking about?
We're talking about the house behind the dairy.
I think I can address that, Frank. I think I can address that. And you're right. I think it's been a subject of concern and various enforcement, but I think it would happen as a result of Steve's predecessor. I think that's where that developed. So you are correct. It has been an ongoing issue, but it's been occurring at the code enforcement officer level, if you will.
Yes, I thought that there was some work being done on it. Steve, could you work on that with Dorothea to research what's been done in the past? And then you and I could sit down and come up with a plan as to how we're going to approach Mr. Corby.
Okay.
The other thing is give Kelly Klein a call. She'll remember this. I remember this. We've come up, but we've issued several citations on it. The other thought is from a communication standpoint with them, Steve, they may not know two things. They may not know that technically we're not supposed to issue this. So that might spur them to act. And the second thing they might not know is what we've been dancing around or talking about this whole time. They may not know that they don't have to have it replaced by, Thanksgiving. They just need to have a plan in place to have the work done. So that communication will be, and I know you'll work on that with Frank, but I think that's pretty good messaging that'll hopefully get them to act.
Okay. That sounds like good. Yeah, and the other thing I just want to I don't know if I need authorization, but I'm going to issue some violations to Charlie Fox for the drainage on his property and the his pond also down by the Pittsford Lumber, because I contacted him several times. Like I said, I don't like doing the enforcement or anything formal or paper if I don't have to, but I have contacted the gentleman and his Amy Northrup, his second, several times, and I'm getting nowhere. So I guess I just let the board know that I will be issuing some violations to Charlie Fox for a couple of items. And it could turn into a little war, I see, just because he's made some comments about some things. So,
Steve, is there any possibility that we could have a similar meeting to what we're planning with the dairy, that you might, if you had a trustee with you and called a meeting with Mr. Fox or his representative, that there might be some headway made?
If one of the trustees would be willing to do that, I think that would be awesome.
The mayor would be able to do that. He doesn't have.
I don't like the words.
Involvement with Mr. Fox.
Yeah, I don't like the words going to war. I think we ought to try to avert that kind of thing, and let's see if we can get him in and get the owner in to try to work with him on it.
Would that work for you, Bob?
I'm willing to do it. If nobody else wants to do it, I'm happy to sit down with Charlie.
Sounds good.
Okay, and I think we should probably include Zach in that too, since it does involve our catch basins and the stormwater system out on Main Street.
Yeah, and I think we should have a third person there anyway.
Good idea. Yeah.
All right,
Okay,
thank you.
Real quick, just want to share with the board, Justin Leistra did comment that he had no opinion in the matter in front of the board. So I assume he was commenting about the dairy.
Yeah, I'd also like to, just for the minutes, to note that I stepped away for the discussion of the dairy, and I have re-entered the meeting after that discussion was concluded. Okay.
All right, thank you.
Anything else, Steve?
Nope, thank you.
Any other topics? Okay, all right. Village Attorney, do you have anything to report, Jeff, other than what we've already discussed?
Jeff, you're muted.
I thought you'd all be able to hear me anyway. I just one very, very minor thing. The HPB had an application for the Tequila Ria signage, and that got me to think about whether or not what the status of the special permit was. They were granted a special permit as the Oak Room in April of last year. It's been over a year since then, and when they opened, however, I'm thinking that Governor Cuomo's stay of limitation periods by state or local law covers them for the not opening within a year. I think whatever time was between March and July, they get a credit for. So they did in fact open within a year if you consider the stay. So if that ever occurs to anybody, that's the answer to that question.
Thank
That's
you, Jeff.
really all I've got. That's all I've got.
All right, treasurer's report.
Okay, Mary sent out the report. I included it in the last packet I sent out. I hope everybody had a chance to review. She only had a few call outs. The payment of Bartlett Tree Experts, Bun Shoes, Easton Specialties. I'm going, and that's it. Is there any questions or concerns regarding the bill pay?
I didn't
have
have time to review it ahead of time. It just came in late this afternoon.
Okay, I had a special request from Mary that there's a bill. It's from Osborne and
you're
Reed.
not-
It's a trustee bill from last year for. There's a trustee bill from last year for $28,412. Mary's received an inquiry from Osborne Reed. I wonder if that one we could pay tonight.
Wait a minute. Who made the inquiry? It wasn't me.
She said someone at Osborne Reed had asked about it.
Gee, I would be surprised. I would be shocked.
Which
No,
it
I'm
didn't
sorry.
come from
I'm
me.
sorry. I'm reading from the wrong. This is my mistake. It's a 420. There's one from May 20th, 2019. It's not from Osborne Reed. It's my mistake. It's actually from Hodgson Russ.
do you have a invoice number on that, Bob?
Yes, she did give me one, Dan. It's 1060870.
All right, let me see here if I
It's,
have it.
it's the first one, Dan, in the packet listed under Hodgson Russ. So it's from April 2019. If that's the right number, it's $10,000.
That's correct. Yep.
And then there's one right after it in May for
Right.
50.
$50,764.
Yeah.
I thought on the Hodgson Russ ones, we agreed to, these were all the ones that came in quite late, right?
That's right. We agreed in
So we
concert
agreed
to
to
pay 'em.
pay all, we approved all these.
If you've looked at them, Dan, we can go ahead and we can approve them tonight in the bills.
I thought we had looked at these as well from 2019.
Yeah,
Well-
we approved them to be paid, and then we recognized that what we were going to do is, because they all came in at once, when we go through the reviewal process, if there are adjustments that need to be made on some of the later ones, we'll make it up. That was kind of the way we thought we'd do it. So if one of the early ones needs to be paid, then yeah, let's pay it, is basically my take. And then if adjustments need to be made down the road because we find errors in them, then we will do that.
Okay. So would someone like to make a motion?
Sure, I'll make that motion to pay that invoice.
Is it, wait,
I'll
Dan, are
second
we
that.
paying, wait, are we paying them both? The two invoices for 61,493? Or just the one for 10,700? Because there are two here and they're both from 2019.
One's from April, one's from May.
What is Mary asking us to do? I don't have that email in front of me. I'm looking for it.
I think she was hoping we would pay them both.
Okay.
They're
And
both
they're both from 2019. They're a year in the rears.
Yeah.
I think you're right. We did agree conceptually to pay these before.
Yep.
We have the money to do so, so I think we should just go ahead and pay them.
Agree. So yes, then the motion is on both of the invoices.
And I amend my second to confer with Dan's motion. Dorothea, could we have a vote?
Absolutely. Trustee Stetser,
Stetser, aye.
Trustee Lampier,
Lampier, aye.
Trustee Galusha,
Trustee Galusha, aye.
Trustee Keating,
Keating, aye.
Mayor Corby.
Corby, aye.
Okay, we still need to go back and do the original treasurer's report, but while we're discussing attorney bills, and I'm sure Bob, you were gonna go there, Mary was hoping we could clear out some of the May and June bills that are still outstanding on the list.
There were
Yeah,
there's 4 that she's concerned about. Yeah.
So
Go ahead, Dan.
I think Dan
sent-
sent an email about those.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, so I did send these off to the trustees today. I got approval on 3 of them today. They are 528, 604, and 659. So these are all Zoglin, and they appeared to be correct to the acting board chair, and they appeared to be correct to me. Do you need the amounts
you
or
wanna
just
make a
the invoice number?
No, I can go by
The
the invoice number. I have
Okay.
the invoice numbers.
So I'll make a motion to pay invoices 528, 604, and 659 from the Zoglin Group.
I'll second Dan's motion. Could we have a vote?
Trustee Keating,
Keating, aye.
trustee Stetser,
That's all right.
trustee Lampier,
Lampier, aye.
trustee Galusha,
Trustee Galusha, aye.
Mayor Corby.
Corby, aye.
Okay, is there any other, like the Osborne Reeds, the municipal, the general ones that are board bills that we could get cleared out?
Not that I have reviewed.
Okay. Do we have an anticipation date, just so I can let her know?
I could probably do it this week. So
Okay.
maybe we'll circulate it by email.
Okay.
Those tend to be pretty straightforward on the trustees.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, can we go back to the original treasurer's report and authorize that, please?
Yes, please. Yep.
Was there any further questions on that report?
We have a motion to approve the bills.
Remind me what the Bunchels greenhouse is. It's the flower baskets. Okay, that's the 5,000. Okay.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the bills. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Lampier, second.
Trustee Galusha.
Okay, Dorothea, would you call for a vote?
Trustee Stetser,
That's all right.
trustee Keating,
Keating, aye.
trustee Lampier,
Lampier, aye.
trustee Galusha,
Trustee Galusha, aye.
Mayor Corby.
Corby, aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, do you want to do minutes now, Dorothea, or do you want to come back to them?
It's the board's prerogative. You have 7 sets. It's up to you. If you want to clear off the rest of
I
the
would say-
agenda, I understand.
Let's clear everything else out and then we'll come back to them at the end, okay? All right, next item we have is a non-municipal use permit for the Turn the Town Teal. I believe it's the same conditions as a year ago, and so I would make a motion to approve it in accordance with the conditions that we approved in 2019. Are there any changes, Dorothea?
No, but they wanted to make sure that the board was still good with them not getting the insurance. Remember, there was a cost.
Yeah.
to the
Yeah, and
insurance.
sorry to jump in, Dorothea. This was a concern last year, and I remember thinking at the time, okay, let's make sure to talk about this the next time it comes up, because they didn't get insurance, and then when we saw what they had done, some of them were really close to the road, and it looked very dangerous. And so we agreed that, hey, let's do this right next year, so that nobody gets hurt, and if they do, the insurance is at play. So I'm very much in favor of supporting them and also making sure they get the proper insurance, because it's very dangerous what they're doing.
Unfortunately, I don't think they can do it without, I think there's a problem getting insurance. I think it's 2 teachers that just go out and do it. They don't, I think there's a cost issue with getting the insurance. So
That's correct.
is there a
That's
whether
correct.
way we could set some parameters for certain ones they can put it at or not put it at, or?
What if we had them supervised by a member of the DPW for the short time it takes at an agreed upon time to put the ribbons on there? And if necessary, we could have our crew assist who would not require additional insurance to do so.
That's a
It
great
also
idea.
might help us get the ribbons in a standard location so they're not as, you know, some of them were kind of up and down the last time. It might be a better look too. Everybody okay with that?
I would be, and I will second that motion that Mayor Corby made.
And I would, the other thing, and this is following my discussion with Wade Beltramo about demonstrations or displays on our streets, that we ought to slightly amend the motion to say that the Village of Pittsford Board of Trustees supports the National Awareness Campaign for Ovarian Cancer, and therefore permits, in accordance with the application, to permit the placement of teal ribbons on the municipal light poles within the business district. Do I have a second in accordance, again, with the conditions that we set in 2019, and with the additional condition that the ribbons be placed with supervision from a DPW village employee?
That's your
I'll
second.
second. Go ahead.
Okay, could Dorothea, would you call for a vote?
Trustee Stetser?
Stetser, aye.
Trustee Keating?
Keating, aye.
Trustee Lampier?
Lampier, aye.
Trustee Galusha?
Trustee Galusha, aye.
Mayor Corby?
Corby, aye.
Motion passes.
Next item we have is the Pittsford Art Walk.
Did we had a public hearing at 7:15. Do we have to do that at a certain time?
We can't do it before 7:15, but we can do it after.
You can be late to a public hearing, you can't be early.
Okay, fair
Right.
enough.
Okay, the Pittsford Art Walk. Questions, comments?
I love this idea.
Mm-hmm.
It's my
I agree.
comment.
Okay,
Sounds
someone
good.
like to make a motion?
I will make a do we have a 45-day?
I think we have to do the 45-day motion first.
Yep.
I will
I'll make a motion.
to waive the 45-day requirement for a non-municipal use permit for Pittsford Art Walk.
You can also
I
include the
second
approval
that.
of the permit.
Yeah, we could lump it all in one motion.
Roll it in one?
All in one.
That's the motion I'm making.
Second.
Okay, I'll
Stetser,
second that. Okay, Renee, you got me. Renee seconds.
Ooh, I got
Dorothea,
one.
could we have a vote?
Yes, Trustee Stetser.
One discussion before we get to the vote. I don't remember in the application whether they said they were accounting for asking people to wear masks during this, but if they aren't, I think we should ask for that as part of their publicity of this.
We can relate that message.
Okay, all right. All right,
Roll call, Trustee Stetser,
Stetser, aye.
Trustee Keating,
Keating, aye.
Trustee Lampier,
Lampier, aye.
Trustee Galusha,
Trustee Galusha, aye.
Mayor Corby.
Corby, aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, the next item, we have a public hearing for a special permit for bobby pin.
This is another idea I liked, the environmentally friendly hair salon.
What a very cute name.
I think it's also very positive that even in this difficult time for business, we've actually had a few businesses open up here. And I think it's a great statement in faith of the conditions that we've created here in the village. And this looks like an innovative concept. Comments, questions? Tonight, I guess we need to have it's a public hearing, right? Yeah, we already did the motion to go to public hearing.
Right.
Nope, you have to, well, you need to open the meeting.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'll make a
open
motion to open the public hearing. Do I have a second?
Second, Lampier.
Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Stetser,
Stetser, aye.
trustee Keating,
Keating, aye.
trustee Lampier,
Lampier, aye.
trustee Galusha,
Trustee Galusha, aye.
Mayor Corby.
Corby, aye.
Motion passes. Meeting's open. Hearing's open.
Does anybody wish to speak on this application?
No, they were here last time, last meeting or the meeting before. I can't remember. They're all blending together. Sounds like a great idea.
Lindsay, I saw your hand up. Go ahead, Lindsay, you have the floor.
You're
Could you
muted.
give us your name and address?
I just wanna, do you wanna unmute? Unmute.
We can hear you.
I wanna say how
You're
excited
live.
I am. I'll frequent it. It's great in
All right.
keeping with everything that's been going on. That's all. It's really
Thank you.
exciting.
We agree.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Okay.
If there are no more comments, I will make a motion to
hold on.
close the public hearing.
I think,
There's another comment.
I think our.
I'm sorry, I missed a hand. Art? He's muted.
He's sending me a chat message, so he would
Okay,
like to
okay.
express his support. Let me see if I can see him on here, if he would like to speak directly. Mr. Pierce, you are unmuted. You can speak.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Yep.
All right, thanks for everybody. I appreciate it very much. So, first of all, I think here again, Mr. Michaels has done an exceptional job. I think everybody recognizes it in everything that he does in the village. Number one, the way he maintains his properties, improves his properties, maintains his properties, and a great contribution, high quality of character, as well as certain, once again, his products, that being his properties and his clients that he secures contracts with. As I think Mayor Corby had said right out of the gate, and seconded by a couple of folks, or third, that, and especially in these times, to have a spot filled is extraordinary, and it speaks well for the village, I think. And I think that's something that everybody should remember when people challenge the village on being too rough. Here we are in a national health crisis, and you still have people wanting to be located in the village. I think here again, reading the application with all the responses as far as the criteria to meet the hardships, the criteria for granting a special use permit, that the well-spoken responses gives the board full justification for granting an approval. And added to it, I think Mr. Keating had said, Trustee Keating had said about the green practices, environmentally friendly practices. They are definitely a role model for all green businesses and moving in towards the future. So across the board, as far as once again meeting the standards for granting an SUP, for the quality and character of both the property owner and the properties and its history and the track record, I see that should be by the trustees seen as a unanimous vote. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you, Art. Does anybody else wish to speak? If no one does, I would make a motion to close the public hearing. Do I have a second?
Second, Lampier.
Well, thank you, Renee. Roll call vote, please.
Trustee Stetser,
Stetser, aye.
trustee Keating.
Keating, aye.
Okay, trustee Lampier,
Lampier, aye.
trustee Galusha,
Trustee Galusha, aye.
Mayor Corby.
Corby, aye. I would make a
Meeting's closed.
motion to
Motion.
approve the application of, excuse me, let me get the name here.
Bobby Pin.
Thank you. To open a salon given that they have adequately addressed criteria A through H sanctioned in the village code, I would make a motion to approve the application for a special permit to open a spa at 71 State Street.
A second.
Do I have a second?
Lanfear.
Okay. Could we have another roll call vote? And we're just warming up for all those minute votes that are coming later.
Excuse me.
Someone want to make a comment?
It's a
Yes.
hair. It's a
Mr.
hair.
Michaels has a comment.
That address would be 39 South Main Street.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's,
Sorry, my mistake. Yes, 39 South Main Street.
And the other
Okay.
correction is it's a salon, not a spa.
Thank you, Dan. I amend my motion accordingly.
Okay, trustee Stetser,
That's our aye.
trustee Keating,
Keating, aye.
trustee Lampier,
Lanfear, aye.
trustee Galusha.
trustee Galusha, aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you, everyone. Okay, next item, we have notes from the planning board on the active transportation plan. Does
Lisa.
anyone from is Justin still, yeah, Justin liked it. Well, both Justins are on. Would either of you like to speak about your comments on the LWRP review of the active transportation plan?
I don't, this is Justin Vleetstra speaking. I'm not sure if we have a whole lot to say right now. We forwarded some comments to you earlier and are working on more comments. So I didn't know if you had any questions for us. It sounded like you probably have not had a chance to look these over yet. So I'm not sure what discussion is likely to happen tonight.
I think to ensure we give it some time, we probably will have to schedule a dedicated meeting. Once you have all the comments ready, I would suggest that we have a dedicated meeting where we can focus on the comments and go through them as we did the zoning exercise in the fall. Does everyone agree with that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Renee.
Okay.
And may I suggest, if we're going to be talking about making some amendments, and first of all, I want to stress that we had some concerns and issues. We all felt it's readily straightforward to address them by modifying your addendum appropriately. And so we're hoping that process could get started in the relatively near future. And I think it makes sense to not send this out to county planning and so on until we've gone through that. We have a meeting scheduled for next Monday to carry on some of our discussions, and I think it's going to be a public hearing for the LWRP review, and we're going to work on some of our observations regarding the LWRP at that meeting as well.
Thanks, Justin, and thanks to the planning board for all the work on this. I do have a couple questions. You said, you made it sound like there were kind of two things going on, that there are LWRP review concerns, and then there are just overall plan concerns. So the most immediate task at hand is finishing the LWRP consistency review. And that's going to happen on the 17th, is that right? I don't have the calendar in front of me.
Well, we have a public hearing for next Monday, which I believe is the 17th.
17th. Okay, so that, and you're going to be doing the consistency review then?
I don't know. We have a public hearing. I was not necessarily expecting to vote on anything.
Okay.
I think expectations are we're making some of our observations, and then we want to hear from you guys as to what changes are you going to make in response to them, or let us know if some of our observations, if you think there's a good reason for doing things, for not, going forward with them, kind of like we've done before. So some things we may be on the mark on, some things we may, you may have some information we're not aware of. So I think that's how we're hoping to proceed, is to identify things and then for you to respond to them.
Okay, great. And then I guess Mayor Corby, this is a question for you since you've been at this since it started. What if we are? I mean, we've said before this thing has been on the shelf for a very long time, and so the work that was completed on it, the public input, the collaboration with the fire marshal, the emergency services, all of that has long since passed. So if we're going to make any changes to this, how do we do it, or do we do it? Because, you know, that core team agreed, and the leadership at the time agreed to whatever was in that report as they worked with the consultant through the work. So, you know, those recommendations were born out of the public input sessions, and the work that went on within the core team. And if we're coming in with outside suggestions, even though they may be very good, how do we reflect those changes when, you know, someone was hired to do this work a long time ago? Trying to marry those two things.
I think the answer to your question is that's the reason I suggested a dedicated meeting for this purpose, because one of the tasks, in addition to you know, reviewing the recommendations from the planning board, we're going to have to vet them to make sure that we're not in conflict with any of the things that you just mentioned. Because if there's things that aren't practical, or for reasons that we have already discussed in our outreach efforts as part of the plan, the planning board wouldn't be aware of that. And so we'll probably have to do some responses with some explanations. What I'd like to do, just in terms of efficiency and demands on everybody's time, is to do this in one meeting where we can go through and do that. And, you know, I guess one question would be, should it be the village board, or should we convene the members of the active transportation plan that we're actually familiar with the process and get them together to do it?
Are these town issues, Justin, or are they are you just looking at the village?
Well, there's issues with both, and our jurisdiction, however, is not in the town, but I think it makes sense to raise these issues. And what we've kind of, by looking at this LWRP in the past, there is a significant omission, because the LWRP should have been a major part of the process from the beginning. And one of the key things that was completely omitted from this plan is, one, access to the canal is mandated by the LWRP, and that was never a goal of this document. So, and some things that were a very big concern to us is improving the bridges to improve them for bicyclists and pedestrians. So, which we really feel is a very critical thing that needs to be incorporated in here. And I know you've been talking about it with DOT as well, but the LWRP has a lot to say about all of this and should really be get into the discussions with DOT as well. Another thing that was omitted from this is consideration from active transportation of the water. And the LWRP has a fair amount to say about that as well. Access for canoers and other recreational uses on the water are in the LWRP, and that should also be considered in the active transportation plan. So that's just a few examples of some things.
Yeah, active transportation typically doesn't deal with the water unless you're using it as a mode of transportation, not for active transportation is sort of looking at getting around without a car. And yes, the water access would count, but we don't have nobody's using it to commute, or nobody's taking their kayak to catch the bus at route, down at Pittsford Plaza or something. So we can talk all through that, but I think that was the reason they didn't include it. And the mayor can talk about why the LWRP wasn't included, because I wasn't, I had just moved here when the plan started. So I don't know why or why not it was, or why it wasn't referenced.
Okay, well, so anyway, we're going to continue with our documenting some of our comments, and it sounds like it could be a fruitful discussion to have a joint meeting where things can be discussed and we'll hear your opinions, because we don't have the background that Renee, you have a lot of background in transportation. The mayor has a lot of background on all these issues. We're coming into this at the tail end of the project, so I think a joint meeting would be very helpful.
Okay.
We will set that up. I think once you're done and you get us your final draft with everything together, we'll probably take an internal look at it as in a dedicated meeting, and then we'll shortly after that set up a meeting together. The only reason I'm suggesting we do an internal meeting first, so if there are some questions you pose that we need to find answers, it'll give us a chance to have those answers before we get together and discuss it together. Okay?
Can we put this, it was really helpful when we put this in a shared Google Doc before where we could put our comments next to each item. I don't know if that's something we can do. Dan, maybe you have some ideas on that. It would be much easier if we could go line by line to address each thing for.
Yeah, I mean, what you've sent over, Justin, so far is about 5 pages. Can you give me, do you have a ballpark of how much, is this going to be, 10, 15, 20 pages, that kind of thing?
We have 2 more documents we're going over. I'd say they're maybe another 15 pages.
Okay. Yeah, let's throw that in a Google document. I'll work with Justin Lightgeb on this.
Great.
Between the two of us, we'll figure it out. And I think that's a terrific idea, Renee.
Thank you, Dan. Okay, moving on.
Wait, Steve's got his hand up.
Steve has his hand up, yeah.
Oh, Steve, yes.
Yeah, I kind of have to apologize because I haven't been up to snuff on this, but I will, any document changer to that, please send to me also, as I am the fire marshal for the village. I should be involved in whatever the comments that were made by the town's fire marshal or Kelly, and then be involved in whatever changes to make sure they fall in line with any of the requirements.
We'll also include you in the meeting, the in-house meeting that we have, Steve, so you can participate. Okay.
Please. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. All right. Next item, we have referral to the county involved agencies about intent for town and village to be co-lead agencies on the active transportation plan.
So Jeff, can we do this in light of what we just said? Do we need to do this tonight? Because it's going to take us, we're not going to be ready to refer this. I mean, we're still within the 60 days.
I think we're a ways out, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we can even do the sending the letters, right?
Well, the problem with that is that if you're going to make changes, what you send out for seeker has got to be what you're considering.
Yeah, so we can't do it.
If it's not final, you can't do it.
Okay.
If I may add something, we're still missing the document. All the appendices are missing. We have not been received that. And I keep reading through different sections of the ATP about additional things that are supposed to be part of the appendix.
Everything in the appendix it was attached in the bottom. It was the zoning maps, the additional, the conceptual drawings, and there was something the town removed. I think it was their complete streets policy, because there was supposedly, or the plan mentioned a draft of a complete streets policy for the town. And the supervisor said there is no such thing. So in the addendum, it says to strike that from the appendix. So everything should be in there. If you're missing something, let me know what it is.
It also said the bicycle level of service raw data was supposed to be in there. That's on page 35 of the document. It mentions that. I just happened to catch that.
Okay.
So I don't know what else is in there. Maybe you should search the entire document for the word appendix and make sure everything mentions it. But my hard copy has no appendix.
And I don't know that I'm supposed to be the steward of this document either. I mean, the consultant was hired to do this. I was kind of brought in to put it all together, but I'm no expert in putting policy documents together. So for both the town and the village, I'm the one putting these together. I don't know if that feels right to me.
Well, the consultant dropped the ball. Well, they sort of have went over budget and basically told us unless we gave them another $13,000, they didn't want to do anything.
All right, so I'm happy
okay.
to go, I'll go through there. I thought I grabbed everything that was listed in the appendix, but you're saying it's listed in the somewhere in the actual.
Renee, that doesn't guarantee that it's in the appendix. So the consultant may have dropped the ball on that.
That's okay. I'll look. I must have
And I'm
missed.
Okay.
I don't think I've seen the appendix yet. Maybe I'm mistaken.
It's at the end of the supplement. It says appendix on the top, but it's like it's at the end of the supplement. Okay, we can probably cover all of that at the meeting that's designated for this.
I would agree. I would suggest we move on.
I'm sure there are a million things missing still.
Okay. Could we talk about speed cameras?
I'm also, I've been interested in, Bob, you had something at the beginning of the agenda, a mayor's statement. Is there something you wanted to say?
I was going to put it under member items, Dan, just so we can get through all the tangible stuff. It's not urgent, just I can leave that later. Okay. All right. Speed cameras. Renee, did you want to talk about it or do you want me to talk about it?
No, it's your research. I don't have any background.
Okay, well, I don't either. I'm no expert, but I have been in talking to the sheriff's department, and also I think out of concern for our discussion with the residents on State Street, there just simply aren't the resources to get the type of enforcement we believe through the sheriff's department that will continually, hopefully, throttle the speeds down. And as Renee said earlier, we know we have to use every tool in the box to make change happen. One of the things that has recently come online and has been used in New York City, and there's one other location in New York State where they have used speed cameras. I found some articles on it, which I sent around. I think I sent them to all of you. But I think in talking to Renee and in talking to the residents, I think speed cameras, although they have been rejected in some places as too much Big Brother, I think they have great potential because we have such a volume of traffic moving through the village. And it's a fairly, we hope, a low-cost way of actually getting some real speed enforcement. And potentially, although this will require more effort, we might actually be able to use it as a revenue source. So I wanted to, before we spend time on and really dig into this and see if it is something that might be viable in the future, I just wanted to do a litmus test on the board and make sure that everybody supports this and that you think it's worth investigating further.
Lanfear, I believe that would be worthwhile research.
Okay. Anybody else?
Oh, I definitely think, I mean, it's certainly worth kicking the tires on it and digging deep. And yeah, I think that would be great.
There is no local use of it. And so I'm through NICOM. I'm going to try to get a contact in New York City and learn a little bit more about where it's been used, what the conditions were, and whether it's been effective and they feel it was a positive experience. So I'll put this in my arena and I'll report back.
There's data from Toronto and DC as well that was like this within the last week or so. I mean,
That's
I know
right.
those aren't New York, but it would be good to have stuff in our state. But they've got some great behavioral data.
Tim Thielman, and on the speed issue, since we're on it, I sent Renee and Brooke Fossey a couple of things earlier. There's a growing movement among cities, and now it's arrived in Buffalo, to get 20-mile-per-hour speed limits made possible. And in reading through some of the materials that were posted online today, it was interesting to hear that Seattle and Washington and New York City are all considering ways to legislatively now allow citywide 20-mile-per-hour speed limits. In some cases, I think Washington is going to do it citywide. New York and Seattle are looking at areas or districts where the speed limit will be reduced to 20 miles per hour, which worldwide is now considered the standard for areas that are considered a pedestrian zone. And there's a little logo of the sign that they actually posted, and I sent that to Renee and Brooke. So I think again, that's something that we should stay attuned to, because although it may not be achievable right now, I think in the next few years, we're going to see more possibilities along that way.
Yeah, so Bob, just to clarify, we can't lower it below. I mean, I know there's speed limit legislation right now.
25 miles per hour.
Right, so we can't go below. So it would take the state legislature to lower our default statewide allowable limit to 20, because right now that's 25. Yes. Okay, so there's multiple steps involved here. Okay, thanks.
We have to think 5 years ahead. Our immediate goal is to get to 25. Once we get to 25, then I think we should start aiming at 20. But it's just like everything, all this canal stuff, you start 10 years later, you actually build the project. But we've got to start now if we're going to make it happen. Dorothea, you had your hand up?
Yes, we have a couple comments from the public. Our peers would like to address the board.
Sure, absolutely. Yep.
Art, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you, Dorothy. I appreciate it. A couple things might be over the place here, but I'm just going to go down the list. So the speed monitors that were up there and all the data, thanks to Zach and Renee, we appreciated that. And I think it's pretty straightforward that I think if you round up 68, 70% of the traffic is above the speed limit. And that's heading at that time eastbound. I believe you're collecting data westbound as it comes into the village. Hopefully both of those monitors will stay up there anecdotally, watching the traffic day and night. It seems that at least a portion of the public, traveling public, recognizes from a distance. As an example, you're at the bridge, your speed limit actually is picked up at that eastbound or the former eastbound monitor there that's just east of Bob Michaels' house. So, or Durham Drive is a better location. So the fact that it's picking up the distance that far away is pretty good and phenomenal. And people are seeing their speed. And here again, anecdotally, there's a number of people that are actually recognizing that, and you can see them slow up. I sense that the same thing's happening now coming westbound into the village. Therefore, I think it's valuable as one of, a dozen or so measures here everybody's been talking about, including medians as the entrance into the village, that they be just one of the measures that stay in place, if you will, permanently, if not long term. The other thing tied in real quickly, I know there's no apparently sketch, but whereabouts is the sidewalk starting and ending again, as far as at least the initial thoughts by the trustees on the north and south side of State Street, if I heard that correctly tonight?
What we're thinking, Art, is that right now it ends at Durham Way. And what we're thinking is we would extend it past the village boundary out. There's a village street light, which is actually located in the town. So somewhere in that area, we would end it and then take it across the street. We've got to look at the other side of the street because, as Zach mentioned earlier, there is a grade issue on the other side, and we need to make sure that we can do it in an ADA compliant way.
Right, understood. All right, well, that's great just to know that. That's helpful. And then the crosswalk, at least initial thoughts would be where? If you can share that, maybe you don't have even general thoughts on that yet.
Well, I think we want to restore the crosswalk at Shane Place and State Street, so you can go over the street versus under the bridge. And then we're thinking we would also have one where this crosswalk terminates, so that instead of being thrust into the road, you'd have a crosswalk to get to the other side. When we talked to DOT, when Renee and I talked to DOT, they suggested extending the village-like streetscape out into the town. Since that time, I've spoken with Bill Smith. We have extended trees a little bit beyond the village line. Bill Smith has no problem with us doing that further. I think that's a program we could implement next spring as part of our annual tree planning. And again, I think it's all hands on deck. Every tool that we have, we've got to throw out there. The other thing I would add to this is over the weekend, I received an email from a resident on East Jefferson Road who said, State Street's getting all the attention. When are you going to deal with our problem? We've seen people driving 50 and 70 miles an hour, which I know is true. So I think long range, we're also going to have to consider if the speed sentry, and you guys that live on State Street are the best of witnesses because you see it every day. If you think that's being effective, that might be a tool that we might have to buy more of them to employ at the other gateways into the village, if you think it actually works. And I would list as the second priority after State Street, I would say is East Jefferson Road, because that really is a raceway.
Right. And so yes, as far as speed sentry, I can't speak for everybody else on State Street, but I certainly have witnessed that there is some indication, definitely an indication, I don't have a count on it, that a reasonable percentage, for starters, they recognize that speed limit. And I think the more and the longer they're there and people are coming back and forth and people literally are reacting to the traffic slowing up, even it starts with 1, then 2, then 4, then exponentially, definitely there's value in it. And my wild guess, relative to dollars spent to all the other items that we're looking for, that it's percentage, it's a very small, but the value gained is definitely worth the money. I don't know what they are, but relatively speaking, I can't imagine they're extravagant by any means. And here again, have definitely value added in our cause here, layered on all the other things. It definitely brings awareness, and it's one of the snowballing effects. Hopefully, in the end, we'll have a great entryway into the village, well, coming and going, quite frankly. So thanks for the update. And so the crosswalk at the east end would be basically at the village town line, is a rough thought. Is that what I heard correctly? As well as obviously showing place
out into the town. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Good. Yeah, that's good. Just generally out that way, not Durham Way and all that stuff. Yeah, because at one point I thought they were talking Durham Way, but I think going out there, once again, it's another visual and more than that, a traffic calming, along with hopefully a median, hopefully along with the sentries, that all these things layered, people will get the point. Not to mention it'll help the sheriff's department enforce the law as it is, which I don't have to have an answer tonight, but it would be nice going back in time when the captain had made mention 15 tickets were issued over a period of time, where those locations were, and his summary thoughts were that there were only, the implications, what I read in the very short email, I realized, maybe a line or two, that they didn't think that many people were traveling beyond 30 or 35. So it'd be interesting to know where they were, where that statement, what it's based on, where they were locating. Was it they were all here at the east end, at the west end, or on the bridge, sort of thing? That's just a follow up at some point. That because here again, the Sentry indicates 68% plus or minus are beyond it. So
right, and even
I
though
appreciate the commentary here.
and Art, your one of the things I brought up with Captain DeLicer is, they, from an enforcement perspective, if you're only going, 5 miles over, it's not a big deal. Well, there's a big difference between 30 miles an hour and 35 miles an hour, especially if someone's hit by an SUV or these giant trucks. So that's why we're trying to get people even lower than that. So from an enforcement perspective, they go, oh, he's only going 36. It may not be a big deal, but to us, that's a big deal. Those of us who live and walk and ride bikes along those roads.
Right. So, and Renee, I appreciate that very much. And I did see that, and thank you on that. And now layered on that is another consideration. If the reality is, it's from expertise and anybody in planning, if the thought is that 25 or 20 is the appropriate speed limit, then here again, because of that 45-mile-an-hour speed limit outside the village on the east side, you're going to have people, if the 25 or 20, you're going to have people, even if you're coming 35 into the village and coming out of the village, you're plus 10 or you're plus 15 over the ideal. I mean, that is phenomenal, incremental, well beyond, the threshold of what's safe for a village, not to mention the quality of life. So it's good that all this stuff and the concerns, the anecdotal observations, the daily observations, the night and day observations, both by residents as well as village board members as they came out and witnessed and talked to the neighbors, is appreciated. But it's certainly all validated that this is hardcore evidence of all these measures that you're taking, and I appreciate your ongoing meetings with the DOT. Real quickly, Frank had made mention, or somebody had made mention about how much currently for the sidewalk and crosswalk, rough estimate, and if you don't have it, that's fine too. And I think that wouldn't be till 2021, even if they could do it. But roughly, what was the dollar amount out of the 9,000 I think you had for overall allocation for sidewalks in the village?
Is that still on?
Yeah, that's for repairs. That's not new sidewalk that we had in there, and that's what.
Oh, okay.
That's what
Oh,
Frank.
I see.
I'm not sure if you heard the beginning of that, but Frank was concerned that we were going to either try to take from that. I mean, or are we going to try to work surplus? But that didn't include any new sidewalks. Zach, is that correct?
Okay.
That is correct.
Yeah.
Okay, great. All right, so nobody has a dollar amount for the funds for the new sidewalk. I don't expect you to have it, but if you had a rough.
Scott, he worked up an estimate of what it would cost for the new sidewalk. I don't remember off the top of my head what it was. Does anybody else?
Yeah, I looked it out. It's about $6,900 for the new section of sidewalk.
But Art is asking if we didn't include that in our budget, which is what Frank was referring to.
Right, understood, and I appreciate that.
We're on a tight budget this year.
Yeah, I can appreciate that. Yep, I appreciate that. All right, well, thank you for all that. Those are my questions, jumping from the sidewalk to the speed. I appreciate that very much.
Okay. Next, yes, Dorothea.
I'm sorry, one quick one. When's the next meeting with the DOT and or the sheriff on this? If there is, and if there is not, that's fine too.
We're waiting to hear from the DOT because at our last meeting, they said their next step is they're going to draw up a schematic striping plan for State Street. They will contact us when we can have another meeting. So we're kind of waiting to hear back from them. Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yep. And then the sheriff's department?
Are you asking for a neighborhood meeting for that, or just when do we touch base with him?
If you have a scheduled any updates for him, or we're not status quo, because here again, we haven't seen anybody out there. Is there going to be a specific defined program, weekly, monthly? I don't know if that's been discussed or if we're expecting anything. I think that it's a good thing to have something, cast in stone.
We haven't talked about that as trustees about trying to come up with a specific program for them, given that we share that resource. So that'll be something that we need to talk about. It is still on the special alert with them, which means that they send officers out whenever they're doing paperwork, whenever they are whenever they're not deployed somewhere else, and they can sit and hand out tickets and do speed enforcement. So they're still on the special attention is what it's called, but we are shared,
right.
But it's a shared resource. So they can't dedicate someone all the time there.
Right. And I appreciate that, again, your efforts in that, and that, they cannot have a solid schedule, but even here again, we haven't seen them. I haven't seen them. I don't know if the other people on state streets, I haven't seen people in weeks, sheriff's departments in weeks, certainly not ticketing in weeks, certainly not stopping any cars in weeks. It just begs the question. I understand they're busy, but not defined in half hour, 1-2 days a week it's surprising. That's all.
Okay.
I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
Okay, am I good?
Yeah, thank you. I'm good.
Yep, go ahead, Dorothea.
Okay, Alyssa Plummer wanted to share a couple comments. I'm not sure she would like to, she will comment. So Alyssa, go ahead.
Elisa, are you on?
She's
Hi.
muted. She does.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Now we can.
Okay.
Now we can. Go ahead.
Yeah. First of all, I think all of the input has been very powerful, and I also would like to add that South Main Street has become a drag street since COVID and locking down. I would probably be able to put together a petition of every single neighbor on South Main Street saying there's something wrong. I have had people speeding by my house easily at 50 miles an hour. And I would like, you folks to just take a look at that. Also, I think what Art has said is really, really important. When we did the active transportation plan with the town, we took a look at what it would mean to lower the speed limits coming into our main streets, into the village. And we need to make sure that we can lower the speed limits. For example, let's just say from the post office on, going out, when you go out State Street, coming into the village, they're coming in at 45 miles an hour. We need to make sure, even with that traffic light at Mitchell Road, that we can lower and put signage up to let people know they're entering a high density area. And I want to make sure that we put those pieces in place, because at least in that one entrance, we can do this with all of the main entrances into our village. And that's all I wanted to say. I think, it's in the transportation plan. We've talked about this for a long time, but I think we really need to move forward on this. And I thank you for taking my comments.
Elisa, I just want to follow up on you because we reported previously to the trustees about our meeting with DOT that Renee and I had, but that is an area where we pushed them, I think, as aggressively as we possibly could have for that transition zone, because their comment is always, well, if you go too low with the speed limit, you'll have rear end collisions. Well, you'll also have rear end collisions when you don't have a transition zone. And we cited other areas where they do have a transition zone, Saratoga Springs. There's many other villages where they tone it down, and they pushed back, and we pushed hard for that. And I think you're absolutely right. It's something that's not only needed on State Street, it's needed on every arterial coming into the village to step it down. And I've talked to Bill Smith. The town is supportive of that. It's also one of the reasons why we need to get the active transportation plan approved in a timely manner, because as Renee knows, DOT has told us, well, give us your approved plan, because then we can cite that.
Okay. Thanks, Bob. Thanks, Bob, for that update. And I'm aware of what has been happening because I'm on the same committee for the active transportation plan, not only for the village, but the town. But what else do we need? Should we have petitions coming from our villagers and town residents? What else does it take to make sure that we can push this forward, I should say? What does this take?
I think the more community engagement we have, every time we go to DOT, we get the rebuff. And I think Renee, chime in here whenever you feel necessary. But the more we can show that there's a community consensus, we hope that's what we're doing with the active transportation, which, as you well know, we worked hard on to push the boundaries. But I think if we really want to make this happen, they're very resistant to it still. I think the more we can show community consensus, this is a life safety issue. People are going to be hurt unless we get the volume of cars that will travel through here to travel at a reasonable speed that gives time for drivers to react responsibly when somebody crosses the street. We've heard it again and again I think we're all in agreement here. So anything we can do to get the public's engagement and document that can only help.
Yeah, a village-wide petition would be great. As many signatures as we can get, and it needs to go to DOT, and then we also need support for the. I've put on the speed limit legislation on the agenda for tonight. I'm not sure if we're going to get there at this rate, but we need support, citizen support for that. So it's not just three of us constantly calling DOT. We need to show that there's community support for this, that this is a community-wide problem, particularly on our state-owned roads where we have the most traffic. So I like your idea, Elisa. Maybe we could, is this something that the trustees agree would be helpful? Because if so, I will work with Elisa and see if we can get a petition started. I mean, we've tried that.
I'd be happy to help too, because
Okay.
I think we should join both efforts, the 25-mile-per-hour speed limit and the transition zones, have them both on the petition. And I think if we spread it around the village, we could probably get almost every resident to sign it.
If I may chime in right now, I think you absolutely could. I love the idea of working with Renee. Let's make this happen. Let's really protect the village and create a pedestrian and bicycle safety program.
All right, so should we take this
I'll
offline?
volunteer too to help, Elisa, because I think it's a great idea.
Okay.
Yep, let's take it offline and get together. Great, wonderful. Okay, moving on. We have a resolution for the 19th Amendment between
Hey, Bob,
August
Bob,
27th. Yeah.
Bob, Jeff Turner. I think we're at the meeting
Yes.
point of the meeting where you thought I probably should excuse myself.
Thank you, Jeff. Yep, thank you. Thank you for your help tonight. Have a good evening.
Thanks,
All right,
Jeff.
everybody have a great night. All right, bye-bye.
Take care. So anyway, as I was saying, there is a celebration in Pittsford between several events between August 27th and August 31st to celebrate the passage of the 19th Amendment. In your packet is a resolution to memorialize this. The town board, I believe, has already approved a similar proclamation. So this is for your approval tonight. I'll make a motion to approve the resolution memorializing the women's suffrage movement, and especially the actions of the Pittsford political committee that was established in the early 19th century, which was a group of 9 women in the village of Pittsford that were active suffragists and friends of Susan B. Anthony and Mary Anthony, her sister.
Thank you. This is terrific. Who wrote it? Where did we get it?
We got a template from the town, and I sort of rewrote it and adapted it for the village.
That's really good.
Thanks. Thanks, Dan. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor, would you ask for a vote, Dorothea?
Sure. Trustee Stetser?
Stetser, aye.
Trustee Keating?
Keating, aye.
Trustee Lampier?
Lampier, aye.
Trustee Galusha? Frank, you're muted.
Trustee Galusha, aye.
Mayor Corby?
Corby, aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, next item, we, several months ago, we conceptually approved an agreement with the Zogden Group, but we have an official retainer agreement that we never really approved by resolution. It's in your packet. I would make a motion to approve it. Any discussion?
So first of all, Dorothea, can you mute caller 3 and Elisa Plummer? Because I don't have the ability to mute anymore. And might as well, yeah. Thank you. I had some questions on this. My biggest question is a comparison, have the rates changed in this one? And then the second one is that the PZBA is now doing these every other month in an effort to control costs, mostly because they've also only had one application in the last few months. So how does, this read, the way this reads right now, it's a monthly retainer where we're looking for an every other month.
Well, we could raise that question with Mindy Zoglin and bring something back.
Yeah.
Excuse me, this is Trustee Galusha. What I think we should do, I think we should not at this meeting, it's starting to get a little late, but I think we should go into an executive session and we should enter into a conversation with regards to the Zoglin Group. Do we want to retain them? Do we want to look at the agreement that we have with them? Look at the billing, compare their billing with the other billings that we've had. I think we ought to do an analysis. And so, Dan, I think you're on the right track, but I think we should really go into executive session, as I said, not tonight, but we ought to do an analysis of the services that we are getting and what it's costing us.
Yes, terrific idea, Frank. I really agree with that. And, make it clear that this is our standard operating procedure. This is just something we should do. This is not related to Mindy's performance.
No, I would agree. And the selection of representation is a decision of the planning board. So I think we're really looking at the cost and making sure that it's in conformance with the planning board's anticipated needs for the year. Okay, I'm in agreement. We'll have Dorothea coordinate a meeting to look at that issue. And it will be a workshop session. I don't know if all of it would be it's performance of a contractor. The contract itself, I'm not sure if all of it could be in executive session, but we can ask it out. Okay, so let's move on. Speed limit legislation, member items. I'm gonna, Renee, you're first.
Yep, I just alluded to that in the previous conversation. I similarly to what Elisa brought up earlier about rallying citizen support, both the Senate and the Assembly bills are in committee right now. The Senate bill has been corrected or amended so that it does reflect that we can lower it to 25 miles per hour on state-owned roads. Previously, it didn't say that in the Senate version that had passed. So we're back to the drawing board. Both are in committee, and we need to get citizen support for this. Otherwise, it's going to stall out again. So it sounds like I'm going to link up with the mayor and Elisa, and we can figure out how we can get some citizen support for this. But we should also get the town and the village to write both of the sponsors of these bills in the Senate and the Assembly to encourage them to make sure they pass this.
I think we should submit all of this as a package, Renee.
Okay.
The other suggestion I would have, and I hopefully Elisa is still listening in, but I think we should also, in terms, if we're going to do a petition for transition zones and speed limits, we should engage the residents just outside the village, like on South Main Street, who live in the town, who have an even worse speeding issue up there.
And it sounds like the DOT was open to lowering that transition zone, at least on State Street in our conversation. So I think
we're making some progress.
Yeah.
But I think we have the other arterials that whatever lessons we learn and experiment with on State Street, I think obviously we have to apply them to the other arterials that are in gateways that are experiencing the same issues.
Okay. And then I think the other, we in the discussion about State Street, I met with John Limbeck last week, and he wanted to make sure that we had two things on the radar. And I know it's getting late. We're now at the 3-hour mark here, but he said about 6 years ago, he asked that the sign from the 30-mile-an-hour sign at the village line, when you enter the village, be upgraded.
Upgraded.
Yeah, he said it's a tiny sign, and years ago he asked that it be put to a bigger sign, a standard sign, I guess, and it's still the tiny sign, and he's wondering if you might have one in the DPW storage or something, but he would like a more visible sign there when you come into the village. He said it's still a small one and that years ago.
Can we get a bigger one, Zach, and just put it up?
I'll look into it.
Okay, I don't know. I haven't been out there since we had the conversation, but he gave me the details, and also he wants to discuss Jake break, a policy of no Jake breaks coming into the village, which again is very hard to enforce. And also if we can change the transition zone where the trucks aren't going as fast, that may help because they won't need to do that really hardcore braking. But I don't know that much about Jake brakes other than, what they do. And, but he wants those two things. He said he's asked for years that we discuss, and I just wanted to make sure they're on
the Jake brakes is a tough one. The one place that I would suggest that we contact is Skinny Atlas, because they have a tremendous amount of tractor trailers that go through that village as a bypass of Syracuse, when trucks that are going from 90 to Route 81. So we could probably contact the Skinny Atlas village office about if they have done anything to address that issue.
Okay, and I'm just gonna, because I think the next member item is mine too, the crosswalk at Maple and South. Zach and I were talking, I was wondering when the signs go up, the three-way or the all-way stop, if we can do some sort of something to bring attention to the fact that there's gonna be some stop signs there, and since there's already a crossing, can we do something with the crosswalk there, different colors, or, even something basic right now, like we were talking about putting a red stop line out there or something, and I will volunteer to paint myself. When those stop signs go up, what can we put out on that to help raise awareness that there's a new stop there? Everybody's got a blank. I know it's 3 hours.
Well, there's the new signs. There's, in addition to where the stop sign is put, there's the new.
Right, but on the road itself, we know how fast people drive there. We got to do something there. So, and I know we have jurisdiction over that road. So,
rather than us fumbling for an idea, why don't we call Dave over at SRF?
Because won't that cost us money? I mean, why can't? Okay. Let's
yeah, for a phone call, I think it's worth it, because I think it's a safety issue. I think it's well worth it. I'm happy to pay for whatever the rate is for 15 minutes of David's time to answer a question like that.
All right.
And also, I had a question too. Is the stop sign going in at the Sutherland driveway, or what's the schedule on that one?
I am currently waiting on the materials to arrive at the shop. They should be here Thursday, and then as soon as we have a few minutes freed up, we will start installing the sign.
The reason I mentioned Sutherland is I'm hoping that we can get it up a few weeks before school starts. I believe school is opening a week later this year, Renee. Is that right?
On the 8th is the first day.
Okay, so it's late this year. But I think it would be great if we could get those signs up before school starts. That's my concern.
We have a lot of work to do, including cleaning the roads, but we're working on it.
Right.
All right.
And is that the same story on South as well? Same timing?
Yes. Hopefully.
Okay. Thanks.
And I'm thinking even if we had like A-frame signs or temporary signs, like the social distancing signs, like sort of a Burma shave sequence, stop ahead or something. On South Street, you could put it on the gateway sign out there, new stop sign ahead, something like that. Right now it has a social distancing message, but I think that would be one way that we could do it. And we should also think about it for Sutherland Street, because we'll have the same issue there as well.
Right. And I know Zach's team is overloaded right now. So that's why I was trying to think of very easy things that we could do that would have a big impact or a minimal impact at this point. That's all I'm looking for, minimal.
If there's a crosswalk at that intersection, which I believe there is, putting a yield sign right there at the corner would be another cue. when those stop signs go in. Understand what I'm saying?
Yep.
Just to put temporarily put a yield sign, a yield to pedestrian sign in the crosswalk.
There's already one
Because they
there.
should be.
Yes, there's already
right.
in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's good.
I was
good.
looking for something in the road. All right, I will keep digging. I will come up with something, and I will be
All
out there
right.
with my paintbrush.
Before we go to minutes, does anyone have any urgent member items, because it is getting late?
The only urgent one that I have is around the communication. So I'm trying to pull up the date here. At the 5/26 trustees meeting, Bob, you mentioned you'd write a Facebook post that's a 75 Monroe update, so those in the village could be aware of what's happening. What is the status of that, and can the trustees see it before it's posted to ensure that it doesn't take the combative stance of our past few press releases?
Well, I don't think any of our press releases have been combative. They've been written by our legal counsel representing the position of the village. I did, subsequent to our last discussion, I did talk to Susan Loda, because in preparation for the litigation that the planning board is involved in, Mindy Zoglin has prepared a summary of the case, and Susan was going to send that to me. What I will do tomorrow is I'll touch base with Susan and see where that's at, because that would provide a good non-biased description of the sequence of events and summary of where we are currently with the cases. So I will make a note to do that myself. Thank you, Dan. All right, so let's go to minutes if we could, and I've got to scroll back. So give me a minute to get there. Lily, did you have another item? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Lily, we can't hear you.
Oh, she might be caller 3 or 2. She might be calling in on the phone.
Lily, can you speak? Nope. Hold on. Go ahead.
Okay, now?
Yep, I found you.
Thank you. Thank you. Very quickly, I know that there is an option online for doing petitions. Would we be able to utilize that? Would that be a legal vehicle for gaining petitions to take to the state about the speed limit?
Sure.
I don't see why there would be any limitation on that, Lily. I think we could ask Jeff, but I don't think it really matters in terms of a petition is a citizen document representing a citizen request. So whether it's online or in paper, I don't think it matters at all.
I was thinking it would be an efficient way rather than going to a door.
I think it's a good suggestion. Yeah, I do.
There's a name for it.
Change.org?
Change.org. There's a bunch of different ones. Yeah.
I'm just wondering if that would be an opportunity for us.
I think that's probably what Elisa's probably talking about, not necessarily going door to door, but sometimes it's also effective to share experience.
Well, I'm thinking with the COVID that it might be a more efficient way to handle.
I agree. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, can I move on? Yep, okay. Minutes, first item, and Dorothea has received a few corrections from people on these minutes. First one is April 21st, 2020. I'll make a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Stetzer will second.
Roll call vote.
Trustee Stetzer?
Stetzer, aye.
Trustee Keating?
Keating, aye.
Trustee Lampier?
Lampier, aye.
Trustee Galusha?
Trustee Galusha, aye.
Mayor Corby?
Corby, aye.
Motion passes.
Next set is April 23rd, 2020. I'll make a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Trustee Stetzer?
Roll call vote, please.
Stetzer, aye.
Trustee Keating?
Keating, aye.
Trustee Lampier?
Lampier, aye.
Trustee Galusha?
Trustee Galusha, aye.
Mayor Corby?
Corby, aye.
Motion passes.
April 28th, 2020. I'll make a motion to approve.
I have one change here on page 6 of April 28. Do you have it there, Dorothea? Member items?
Hold on, please. Yes. Go ahead.
Just in the second paragraph of member items, the sentence should read, he questioned who had made that request, not if the office staff had made that request. That sounds accusatory. I would never do that.
You actually did ask that question. I can go back, Dan, but I can change it.
The way it reads, it's
Did you-
accusatory, and that's not the intent at all.
I would, point of order.
Okay, all right, we'll leave it as is. Got it.
I'm supposed to change the dialogue after it's been recorded.
I'm not asking to change the dialogue, Lily. Please listen to what I'm actually saying.
I listened to what Dorothea just said, and she did it
Okay.
verbatim, so.
What did I say, Lily? Just tell me what I said there.
Dorothea recorded it as she heard it over the recording.
What was the difference? What was the change that I'm asking for?
You changed the words.
You don't have any idea the change I'm asking for. Let's move on. The notes as they read are inaccurate. So.
Okay, all right. We have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second for the minutes of April 28th? Would someone like to second?
A second, Lanfear.
Okay. Dorothea, roll call vote.
Trustee Stetser?
Stetser, aye.
Trustee Keating?
No.
Trustee Lampier?
Lampier, aye.
Trustee Galusha?
Trustee Galusha, aye.
Motion passes.
You forgot to ask me, Dorothea.
Oh, Mayor Corby, I'm sorry. Tired.
Corby, aye. Okay, May 5th, 2020. I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, roll call vote, please.
Trustee Stetser?
Stetser, aye.
Trustee Keating?
Keating, aye.
Trustee Lampier?
Lampier, aye.
Trustee Galusha? Frank, you're muted.
Trustee Galusha, aye.
Mayor Corby?
Corby, aye.
Motion passes.
May 12th, 2020. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes. Do I have a second?
I had a correction with the State Street discussion about the speeding, I think, and Mayor Corby had said that you were talking about speeding on Main Street, but I think you were talking about the incident on State Street. So I asked Dorothea to correct that. I just wanted to make sure, given that that was your statement. Okay, I wanted to make sure he agreed with that.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was
Yes,
done. I
thank
double
you,
checked.
Renee.
Okay.
Thank you. Roll call vote, please.
I'm sorry, who seconded that?
Somebody did.
I don't think anyone did because I jumped in.
Lampier,
Okay,
second.
all right. Renee, would you second it?
I'll second.
I did it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Trustee Stetser?
Stetser, aye.
Trustee Keating?
Keating, aye.
Trustee Lampier?
Lampier, aye.
Trustee Galusha? Frank, you're muted.
Trustee Galusha, aye.
Mayor Corby?
Corby, aye. Proceedings of the regular meeting on May 12th. I'll make a motion to approve. Do I have a second? Oh, no, let's see. I'm sorry. I'm still on the same one. I apologize. May 26th, 2020. I'll make a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second. Trustee
Guys,
Galusha.
before we get on to May 26th, there's something about May 12th that is just not sitting right with me. And it's the and I was going to let it go, but I'm not going to. So I do want this on the record. So this is in, the 12th is a very long one, so let me find it. This is in the discussion on the Hodgson Russ billing. That is on page 5 of the May 12th notes. So everything that's in the Hodgson Russ legal bills is accurate. It's missing one thing though, and that's that I question whether a meeting ever took place with the trustees where we agreed to have Hodgson Russ withhold its bills.
2.5 hours is not a complete utter waste of time. You don't think that?
Hold on.
So can you read that back to me, please?
Sorry, I couldn't. We had feedback. You were looking for a meeting.
Can you mute Art for me, please?
I thought he was muted. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's not anymore. Okay, so everything in there is accurate. What it's missing is the heart of what my argument was, which is that I question whether there ever existed a trustees meeting where we decided as a group to ask Hodgson Russ not to submit its invoices to us. It's missing that the most critical element of the
I
argument.
remember that discussion. So what are you at? You're asking her to add
Yeah, that's what I was questioning.
Okay. I remember that discussion very clearly, so I'm fine with adding that.
All set?
Yep. I will
Okay.
clarify that.
Thanks. So now we're on to, I'm sorry, what's the date on the next one?
The next one is May 26, 2020.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as written.
Do we have a second for May 26, 2020?
Stetser, second.
Could we have a vote, Dorothea?
Trustee Stetser?
Stetser, aye.
Trustee Keating?
Keating, aye.
Trustee Lampier?
Lampier, aye.
Trustee Galusha?
Trustee Galusha, aye.
Mayor Corby?
Corby, aye. Next one is June 9th, 2020. I'll make a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dan. Could we have a roll call vote, please?
Trustee Stetser?
Stetser, aye.
Trustee Keating?
Keating, aye.
Trustee Lampier?
Lampier, aye.
Trustee Galusha?
Trustee Galusha, aye.
Mayor Corby?
Corby, aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you, everyone. With that, I would make.
Can I ask
Do you
a
have
quick
another
question?
item, Renee?
No, but
Sure.
when I was just remembering that Frank emailed everybody and said he had some significant corrections to, I think it was the one where we did all the board, the different liaison appointments and whatnot. Did all of that get added, Frank?
We have not met yet.
No. The minutes. You said you had some corrections in the minutes that you were going to bring up at the meeting, but you didn't bring them up. So I wanted to make sure that you weren't muted or something, that we didn't miss your.
No, Frank
correct.
did bring them. Frank did bring them to my attention. I made those corrections, and they were in
Okay.
the last packet. All corrections
Okay.
that were given to me prior were included in
Okay,
the last
perfect.
packet.
Okay,
Yes.
awesome. Thank you.
This morning,
Bob,
I called Dorothea and we went over the minutes and all my changes were made.
Great.
I just wanted to make this meeting a little bit longer.
Hey, Bob, you had a Mayor Corby statement?
Yeah, it's just a general thing. I'm gonna save it for next time, Dan. It wasn't anything urgent. It was just a general statement, which I'll put on the agenda for the next meeting. It's not urgent. Given the time, I think I would, I'm hungry like everybody else, and I'll save it for next time. I did one
Okay,
other thing, just quickly.
want to mention
that.
on that issue, Usually we make it a practice to send everything around to everybody. None of us like mystery. None of us like surprises. So please send around your statement ahead of time. Thanks.
I will. Thank you, Dan. I just wanted to give an update on our hiring. Dorothea and Mary, we received over 100 applications for the position of treasurer. Mary and Dorothea went through them in detail, shared their selections with me. We conducted a first round of interviews for 10 applicants. This week, we concluded the second round of interview with the top 3 that all of us agreed on. We still have to come to an agreement on a price. We haven't made an offer yet, but we should have a recommendation hopefully by the end of this week, and we'll share that with the rest of the board when we do. Anything you want to add to that, Dorothea?
Nope. We had a lot of interest and we did review every resume that was received.
And we had 3 candidates that were very strong. So
Yep.
we haven't concluded the process, but we will have it done in the near future. Okay. So with that, I would like to make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Could we have a vote?
Trustee Stetser,
Stetser, aye.
trustee Keating,
Keating, aye.
trustee Lampier,
Lampier, aye.
trustee Galusha,
Trustee Galusha, aye.
Mayor Corby.
Corby, aye. Thank you,
Motion
everybody.
passes. Meeting's over.
Have a good evening.
Good
Take
night.
care.